Speaker.
Almighty God, we give thanks to you, the creator of the universe, and humbly beseech you to direct and prosper the deliberations of the members of this house here assembled for the advancement of your glory and the trust and welfare of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Grant that peace and happiness, truth and justice may be established among us for all generations. Amen, amen, namaste.
Oath or affirmation, announcements by the Speaker.
Honorable members, Dr. Lakram P. Bodo, MP, member for Faizabad, has requested leave of absence from sittings of the House during the period March 16th to 26th, 2018. And Mr. Rushton Parry, MP, member for Miaro, has requested leave of absence from today's sitting of the House. The leave which the members seek is granted. Members, I am to advise that I have received the following correspondence from the Vice President of the Senate dated March 16, 2018. Dear Honorable Speaker, Establishment of the Joint Select Committee. Your letter dated March 12, 2018 on the subject at caption. I wish to advise that at a sitting held on Tuesday, March 13, 2018, the Senate concurred with the House on the establishment of a Joint Select Committee to consider and report by July 31, 2018, on the Constitution Amendment, Tobago Self-Government Bill 2018, and the following 6 members were appointed to serve on the committee: Mr. Clarence Ramadhar, Mr. Nigel De Freitas, Mr. Foster Cummins, Mr. Saddam Hussein, Dr. Daneshwar Mahabir, Mr. Stephen Crease. Accordingly, I respectfully request that the House of Representatives be informed of this decision at the earliest convenience, please. Respectfully, Senator the Honorable Nigel De Freitas, Vice President of the Senate.
Bills brought from the Senate, petitions, papers.
Minister of Finance.
Madam Speaker, I have the honor to lay the following papers. The audited financial statements of the Sports Company of Trinidad and Tobago Limited for the financial year ended September 30th, 2017. And papers 2 to 5, the second report of the Auditor General of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago on the financial statements of the Sugar Industry Labor Welfare Committee for the years ended September 30th, 1999, 2000, 2001, and 2002. I beg to move that paper 1 be referred to the Public Accounts Enterprises Committee and papers 2 to 5 be referred to the Public Accounts Committee.
Honorable members, the question is that paper 1 be referred to the Public Accounts Enterprises Committee and papers 2 to 5 be referred to the Public Accounts Committee. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any against? The ayes have it. The Minister of Trade and Industry.
Thank you very kindly, Madam Speaker. On behalf of the Minister of Trade and Industry, I have the honor to lay the following papers. Paper number 6, the Annual Administrative Report of the Export TT Limited for the fiscal year ended September 30th, 2015. Papers 7 to 9, the Annual Administrative Report of the Business Development Company Limited for the fiscal years ended September 30th, 2010, 2011, and 2012. Paper number 10, the Annual Administrative Report of the Invest TT Limited for the fiscal year ended September 30th, 2014. Thank you very kindly, Madam Speaker.
Reports from committees.
Member for Lupino, Bonnier West.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I have the honor to present the 7th report of the Joint Select Committee on State Enterprises on an inquiry into the efficiency and effectiveness on the Education Facilities Company Limited in managing the construction and repair of government and government-assisted schools. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Member for St. Anne's East.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I have the honor to present the following reports. The 6th report of the Joint Select Committee on Human Rights, Equality and Diversity on an inquiry into the impact on mental health and family life of remandees at the remand prisons. Number 3, the 7th report of the Joint Select Committee on Human Rights, Equality and Diversity on an inquiry into the status of the implementation of the recommendations of the 2015 report of the Joint Select Committee on Human Rights, Diversity, the Environment and Sustainable Development on the examination of programs and services which provide support to various victims of domestic violence. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Prime Minister's questions, urgent questions.
Member for Couva North.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. To the Minister of Education, could the Minister state precisely when will work begin on the Karipichaima East Secondary since its closure some 3 months ago?
Minister of Education.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Work on the Karipichaima East Secondary School commenced on Friday, 9th of March, 2018, and is expected to be completed by the 10th of April, 2018. Thank you.
Supplemental, Member for Couva North.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Minister, can you state exactly what arrangements have been made in the interim for students attending the school?
Minister of Education.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, again. Arrangements have been made for the upper school to be housed at various localities to ensure that they are in a position to comply with all the requirements, especially in terms of the SBAs. In terms of the lower school, we had a delegation visiting the school about 1 month ago, and there were certain arrangements that were supposed to have been put in place and certain agreements. At that meeting, it was attended to by the member for Couva North. We had an agreement that would have facilitated the entry of all our students. However, apparently things fell down, and at this point, those students are still out of school. I have been assured, however, that once the repairs have been completed in time, and I gave a date just now, the 10th of April, when school resumes at the beginning of the 3rd term, all our students would have been accommodated. Thank you very much.
Supplemental, Member for Chaguanas East.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Could the Honourable Minister indicate what is going to be done to prepare these students for their CSEC and CAPE examinations next term in view of the fact that they have lost an entire term of teaching and learning?
Minister of Education.
Madam Speaker, I don't think it is accurate to say those students have lost an entire term. The problem at Karipichaima East Secondary School started in January this year because of a pigeon infestation. As I just indicated, the upper school are being accommodated at various places, and I've been assured that the teachers are doing everything possible so that those children will not be disadvantaged. In fact, Madam Speaker, before I came here, I had a telephone conversation with the principal, and I have been assured that everything has been put in place so that those students will not be disadvantaged. Thank you.
Question 2 to the member for Shogunas East.
To the Minister of Education, could the Minister state the reasons why fees for scholarship awardees studying abroad have not been paid, resulting in their suspension and prevention from attending classes and writing examinations which may jeopardize their graduation?
Minister of Education.
Madam Speaker, first of all, I want to give the accurate information, and that is not all the students have been affected. In fact, there are 583 of our scholars who are studying abroad, and there were some difficulties with respect to 102. In other words, 481 of our scholars have been paid their stipends and all living expenses. 20%. Some of the problems that have been identified would be outstanding status letters, transcripts, and invoices from the scholars themselves or from the missions. And scholars for academic year 2017 to 2018 whose contracts have not been signed to date. And these are some of the problems. However, Madam Speaker, I would like to state that it should be noted that from March the 14th, 2018, that is this week, sufficient funds have been released to cover the majority of outstanding tuition payments that are now owing. Thank you very much.
Supplemental, member for Shogunas East.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Could the Honourable Minister indicate by when will all of these indebtedness to these students be paid completely? My information is that some of them have been asked to discontinue their classes.
Minister of Education.
Madam Speaker, my information is contrary to what my good friend has just said. I am not aware that any of the students has been asked to vacate their premises or their schools. To answer the question directly, Madam Speaker, I have just stated that invoices have been sent and releases have been obtained, which will afford the possibility and the opportunity for all our students who are studying abroad to be paid.
Supplemental, member for Carrick East.
Do you consider this acceptable for the government and the Ministry of Education to put these students through this turmoil as even they are government scholarship winners?
Minister of Education.
Madam Speaker, whether it is acceptable or not, I can only deal with the bare facts. As everyone knows, this country is having some challenges with respect to our finances. And again, I've been assured by our Minister of Finance that everything possible is being done to prevent our scholars from suffering undue hardships.
Member for Oropuch West.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. To the Minister of Health, could the Minister indicate whether financial resources will be allocated to assist 5-year-old Halima Mohammed to continue treatment for her life-threatening disease in India since she was hospitalized after experiencing a medical emergency this week?
Minister of Health.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the individual in question is suffering from thalassemia, which is not a life-threatening disease, as stated by the Children's Life Fund Board under Dr. Maritza Fernandes, which was the same board that was operating under the previous administration. The individual in question and the family went to India for a particular procedure and returned. I would advise Ms. Mohammed and her family to take her to the nearest healthcare institution for emergency treatment. In light of the new clinical symptoms, an application can be made to the Children's Life Fund for any treatment which qualifies as life-threatening. I can tell this Honorable Chamber that no application to date for this new episode has been received, and the Children Life Fund continues to function from September 2015 to now. We have given out $28,542,990 to 87 patients suffering from life-threatening conditions as determined by the same personnel under this administration which served under the last administration. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
Supplemental to the member, supplemental.
Without question, not get about anything. If the Children Life Fund has said that if the Children Life Fund has said it's not a life-threatening emergency, take it as it must, why is she then fighting for her life now in Mount Hope?
Because, Honorable Member, we have no idea what happened in India. So it is very improper, I think, for anyone to even indicate or infer that this was related to the original condition. As I said, the patient went to India. Neither you nor I nor anyone knows what happened or did not happen in India. And we should not assume and put assumptions as facts. I thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
Member for Superior.
Madam Speaker, in light of the major sewer problem at the Clark Road Hindu School, which has resulted in early dismissal of classes, as well as many children falling ill, and with tests and exams scheduled to start on Monday, can the Honourable Minister please inform this House what urgent measures are being taken to rectify this untenable situation?
Minister of Education.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, a meeting was held this week involving the principal of the school, officers of the EFCL division, school supervisors, and other major stakeholders. At that meeting, the principal stated that although approvals have been carried out for repairs to the sewer system, and that approval was conveyed to the EFCL, the principal requested that work be delayed until the 24th of March so that our students will not be interrupted with respect to the writing of their end-of-term exams. Thank you very much.
Supplemental member for Superior.
Thank you. Honourable Minister, are any arrangements in place for these students who have been missing classes, I'm told, since January because of this problem? Are any alternative arrangements being made till, you say, 24th of March?
Minister of Education.
Madam Speaker, the students have not been missing classes. What has happened is that school has been dismissed early every day. And during the morning period, Madam Speaker, I'm being interrupted. Madam Speaker, during the morning session, again, I have been told that every effort is being made by the teachers in the classes to ensure that the syllabus is taught and the curriculum is implemented. Thank you very much.
Supplemental member for Superior.
Thank you very much, Madam. Honourable Minister, have we found the root cause of this problem? Is it sabotage or is it incompetence with the sewer problem?
Minister of Education.
Madam Speaker, the problem is really one of an unbearable stench. The officers of the Ministry of Education, in conjunction with officers of the EFCL, have done a site visit and they have looked at the problem. It seems as though there is a rupture on one of the sewer lines, which causes the scent, the unbearable scent. That will be rectified as soon as possible, and it is hoped that that problem doesn't recur. Thank you.
Member for Princestown, it's a bit too early in the day for us to start all of this course.
Questions on notice, questions for oral answer.
Leader of the House.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, there are 7 oral questions, and we will be answering all of those. There are 5 written questions. We will be answering 4, and we're asking for... There are 5 written questions, and we will be answering all 5 questions. Where is the answer?
Member for Urupuch West.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Question number 107 to the Minister of Health.
Minister of Health.
Many thanks, Madam Speaker. The ceiling in the nurses' station was damaged and the electrical lights were wet but not blown. B. The cost was $5,000 and was completed by in-house staff. C. The air handler's drain piping system has been included in the inspection schedule to ensure the integrity of the main pipe fitting joints and the free flow of water.
Supplemental question, member for Urupuch West.
Honorable Minister, could you tell this House when was the last time a structural assessment was done at the San Fernando General Hospital?
I will allow that question as a supplemental question. Member for Urupuch West.
Question number 108 to the Minister of Agriculture, Land and Fisheries.
Minister of Agriculture, Land and Fisheries.
Madam Speaker, the Zoological Society of Trinidad and Tobago estimates that the exhibit will cost between $20,000 and $40,000. The final price will be determined based on the number of specimens in the exhibit. Thank you.
Supplemental member for Urupuch West.
Honorable Minister, was there a cost-benefit analysis undertaken to assess the feasibility of this project?
Minister of Agriculture, Land and Fisheries.
Madam Speaker, from time to time, the Zoological Society adds exhibits to the collection based on the interest of people in the country, and it is the belief of the Society that this exhibit would enhance the education options and the interests of citizens of this country.
Member for Urupuch West.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Question number 109 to the Minister of National Security.
Minister of National Security.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the event which occurred on January the 23rd, 2018 at the Port of Spain prison was not a prison raid, but a routine search conducted by the Trinidad and Tobago Prison Service Association, Trinidad and Tobago Prison. At this routine search exercise, no prisoner was severely injured. However, 7 prisoners sustained minor injuries in the form of lacerations. All 7 prisoners were taken to the Eric Williams Medical Sciences Complex, where they were treated and discharged on the same day. To date, Madam Speaker, the Office of the Commissioner of Prisons has received no reaction protocol for any legal action against the state.
Supplemental member for Urupuch West.
Honorable Minister, has any further routine search been conducted since?
Minister of National Security.
Madam Speaker, as the name suggests, routine searches are conducted on a routine basis throughout.
Member for Couva South.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Question number 127 to the Minister of Education.
Minister of Education.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I'm very pleased to respond. Madam Speaker, as with several other unfinished projects under the purview of the Ministry of Education, efforts are being made to identify funds for the payment of the outstanding sums owed and for completion of the school. However, at this time, I am unable to say when this center will accept its first intake of students. Thank you.
Supplemental member for Couva South.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Is the Minister aware that this facility has been totally vandalized and is being used as a hideout for criminals to carry out carjackings and home invasion in the Macbean, Calcutta number 123 and Bokaro area.
I will not allow that as a supplemental question. Member for Caroni East, supplemental.
Could the minister indicate why is it that at least 8 early childhood education centers which have been completed already have not been opened?
Minister of Education.
Madam Speaker, I am not sure that there are 8 ECC centers that have been completed and have not been reopened. I can simply say that we are looking at this, and sometime next week, we'll have a definite decision on how we are going to proceed with respect to all the schools who are in a state of either repair or disrepair or who have not yet been reopened. By the end of next week, we'll have something definite to say on this.
Supplemental member for Central, Caroni East.
Minister, are you aware that you have been making these similar statements for the last 2.5 years?
Member for Caroni East. Member for Caroni East, I would not allow that question. Member for Couva South.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Question 128 to the Minister of Public Utilities.
Minister of Public Utilities.
Madam Speaker, the illumination of parks and recreation facilities is a component of the National Street Lighting Program. Approval for illumination is based on the following conditions: ownership by the regional corporations, proximity to other illuminated grounds, infrastructural needs, and of course the availability of funds or funding. An application was made by the MP of Couva South for the illumination of both the Phoenix Park and the Bokaro recreation grounds, both of which are located in the constituency of Couva South. In January 2017, site visits were conducted to both grounds. In March 2017, approval was conveyed only for the Phoenix recreation ground. Approval was not granted for the Bokaro recreation ground based on the following considerations. 1, close proximity to 2 already illuminated grounds, and 2, lack of infrastructure at the site. With respect to the Esperanza recreation ground, this ground is still to be surveyed by TNTech. It should be noted that of the 14 constituencies, Couva South has the 3rd highest number of recreation grounds illuminated. The Ministry of Public Utilities, through TNTech, has approved and implemented the lighting of 11 recreation grounds throughout the Couva South constituency, with an additional 1 recreation ground in progress. Thank you.
Supplemental member for Couva South.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Could the Minister clarify, because he seems to have gotten his geography wrong. I, at no point in time, inquired about the Phoenix Park recreation ground. That is in the...
Member for Couva South, do you have a supplemental question? Member for Naparima.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Question number 130 to the Minister of Works and Transport.
Minister of Works and Transport.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, with regards to the road maintenance program for Carnival 2018, Madam Speaker, the Ministry of Works and Transport under the Highways Division conduct road maintenance in 8 districts on a daily basis, irrespective of constituencies. The National Road Maintenance Initiative was launched as part of the pre-Carnival road patching program. The focus of this exercise was Port of Spain, Diego Martin, Arima, Chaguanas, Couva, San Fernando, Point Fortin, to improve the road conditions for the Carnival activities. In addition to these, all 8 districts under the purview of the Highways Division continued with routine patching works on all roads within the jurisdictions. Subsequent to the pre-Carnival initiatives, all municipal corporations were invited to participate. The works which were conducted for the carnival period were in St. George West, Coblin Road, St. Anne's Road, Cascade Road, Aripita Avenue, Tragreet Road, Western Main Road, Maraval Road, Ryson Road, Diego Martin, Main Road, Saddle Road, Mount Coco Road, St. Lucian Road, Diego Martin, Main Road, Port of Spain, East West, Central, and St. James area done by the Port of Spain City Corporation. St. George East, Eastern Main Road within the Arima Borough Corporation, Guanapo Junction Road, and Tunpuna Road. St. Andrew, St. David, Valencia Road, corner Briley Street and Ramdas Street, corner Briley Street and Savi Street. Eastern Main Road, Sani Grande. Caroni, Chaguanas Main Road, Waterloo Road, Southern Main Road, Couva. Victoria West, Pointe-à-Pierre Road, San Fernando Bypass on the southbound, Hermitage Road, South Trunk Road, Manahambury Road. In St. Patrick, the Southern Main Road and Grant Road. Garth Road and La Fortune Plock Road. In Victoria West, St. Croix Road, Naparima Mayara Road, 6 Company Circular Road, and the Tabaquite Road. In Nariva Mayaro, Naparima Mayara Road, Mayaro Guayagari Road, San Pedro Road, and the Manzala Mayara Road. The number of additional contractors hired for this project, Madam Speaker, in-house labor from the Ministry of Works and Transport and the Ministry of Rural Development and Local Government were used for this project. No contracted services were employed. The total cost of this project for asphalt production is $301,800, inclusive of diesel, aggregate, and bitumen. The procurement process used, in-house labor and material were used. I thank you.
Supplemental member for Naparima.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Could the Minister give us the details of road works done on the Garth Road or any other road in the Naparima constituency?
Minister of Works and Transport.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, in the St. Patrick area, in the St. Patrick Grant Road, 1.5 to 2.2 kilometers. La Fortune Plock Road, 0 to 4.0 kilometers.
Supplemental.
That those 2 roads are not in the constituency of Naparima, therefore he has not answered the question.
Not pave in the Ministry of Highways by constituency. We pave in 8 divisions, and the reporting is not by constituency. Thank you.
Supplemental member for Naparima.
Is the Minister aware that in my constituency there are a number of roads that are affected by landslip and are impassable and therefore worthy of consideration in any road improvement program?
I will not allow that as a supplemental question. Member for Baratarisano.
Minister, I got a little confused in the last answer. Could you indicate whether you're talking about road paving or pothole patching?
Minister of Works and Transport.
Madam Speaker, the question number 130 was with regards to the road maintenance program for Carnival 2018. Could the Minister provide? This is on our road maintenance program.
Member for Kamuto Manzanilla.
Thank you. Question number 131 to the Minister of Finance.
Minister of Finance.
So it's 130? Oh, I see. It has changed from last week. No problem. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Answer to part A is no. Answer to part B. The Finance Act of 1994 introduced a road improvement tax of 5% on the retail price, excluding value-added tax of motor vehicle fuels. This tax, as the member should know, was subsequently abolished in 2006, and therefore there has been no road or gas tax imposed on motorists at gas stations for the last 12 years, as the member should know.
Supplemental, member for Naparima.
Tell us whether the various taxes that are placed on gasoline has led to an elimination of the subsidy, the gas subsidy.
I will not allow that as a supplemental question.
Request for leave to move the adjournment of the House on definite matters of urgent public importance.
Member for Tabakit.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I hereby seek your leave to move the adjournment of the House today under Standing Order 17.1 to discuss a definite matter of urgent public importance, namely the failure of the government to effectively manage the Trinidad and Tobago Sea Bridge in light of the recent announcement that there will be no travel on the passenger ferries to Tobago for at least 10 days due to mechanical and safety issues, and the failure of the government to put in place adequate alternative means for persons to travel between Trinidad and Tobago. Madam Speaker, the matter is definite because it deals specifically with the failure of government to effectively manage the Trinidad and Tobago Sea Bridge, given the recent announcement withdrawing the TNT Express from service due to safety concerns, and the fact that the TNT Spirit has been on dry dock for over 9 months now. The matter is urgent because the unreliable sea bridge service has further exacerbated the negative impact already experienced by the tourism industry in Tobago and will affect hotel and guest house bookings for the upcoming Easter holiday, which is yet another critical income-earning period for the sector. The matter is also urgent because of the government's incompetence and ability to administer and maintain a reliable sea bridge.
Correct.
This matter is of public importance because the collapse of the sea bridge has led to the virtual collapse of the Tobago economy, resulting in ever-increasing hardships on the people of Tobago, including limited access to basic commodities. This latest development in the sea bridge saga would devastate the Tobago economy and all but destroy the island's tourism sector.
Sad.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Honourable members, I am not satisfied that this matter qualifies under this standing order. While this matter is no doubt of importance, I take note of the fact that this matter was recently raised in the other place, which means that the issue was recently ventilated and the government provided a response. While it remains of public importance, it can no longer satisfy the requirement of urgency under this standing order. Member for Karen East.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. In accordance with Standing Order 17.1 of the House of Representatives, I hereby seek leave to move the adjournment of the House at its sitting today, 16 March 2018, for the purpose of discussing a definite matter of urgent public importance, namely the urgent need for extremely experienced teams of infection control professionals to investigate and evaluate all neonatal intensive care units in Trinidad and Tobago. The matter is definite because of the recent widely reported disputed cases of neonatal fetal demise and brain damage of neonates associated with the bacterial infection at the San Fernando General Hospital Neonatal Intensive Care Unit. It is urgent since immediate action and intervention are required to prevent loss of lives of newborn babies in these units secondary to bacterial and nosocomial hospital-acquired infections. It is of public importance because hundreds of expectant mothers with perinatal maternal complications are extremely concerned for the safety, well-being, and fetal outcome of their future newborns needing possible hospitalization in these units.
Honourable members, I am not satisfied that this matter qualifies under this standing order. I advise that the member pursues this matter under Standing Order 16.
Statements by ministers.
Minister of Sport and Youth Affairs.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I have been authorized by the Cabinet to make a statement on this milestone document, the Trinidad and Tobago National Policy on Sport 2017 to 2027. Madam Speaker,
Prior to the development and subsequent laying of this document in the Parliament, this Twin Island Republic has been without a formal sport policy for the better part of 4 years. The 2002 National Sports Policy expired in 2012 as per policy best practice. As part of the development of this new policy, the complementing the document, reviews, consultation, and stakeholder engagement was a comparative analysis of sports policies from the Commonwealth jurisdiction. Some of these included the Canada Sports Policy, the National Sports Policy for Jamaica, Green and White Papers, the White Paper on Sport and Recreation for the Republic of South Africa, and the Australian Sports Policy. The Green and White Papers of the National Sports Policy were of particular interest in respect to the institutional arrangements as development rubrics which underpin that country's successful athletics program. Many of these sports systems that are employed in Trinidad and Tobago are derivatives of the Australian model, and so we were keen to assess this country's sports policy. In addition to the after-mentioned policy, several optional plans and operational plans from other jurisdictions were examined to give birth to the national policy on sport, policy perspectives, as well as to provide insight into the implementation. Madam Speaker, the National Policy on Sport adopts a comprehensive and collaborative framework for action. In this respect, the policy identifies a core group of stakeholders which are reflective of the government's whole-of-government approach to national development. An extensive group supplements these key focal points and includes public, private sector, non-governmental agencies, and other organizations in a network of strategic partnerships integral to the successful implementation of policy objectives. The policy addresses 13 objective areas, all of which have been identified by these stakeholders as being key priority areas for the development of sport in Trinidad and Tobago. As regards sport for development, sport is seen as a vehicle to achieve personal, community, national, and international development objectives, and the key priority areas are as follows: high-performance sport, total participation, capacity building, administrative reform, financing sport, creation of an enabling environment, marketing and communication, research, development, and planning. Development of sport, on the other hand, contemplates the development and applications of mechanisms to strengthen networks of infrastructure within the country. In this regard, the following objectives areas are addressed: industry and commerce, social development, infrastructure development, national cohesion and national pride, and physical literacy. Madam Speaker, the National Policy on Sport also places focus on the employment of core strategies to facilitate the development of the enabling environment, which will promote successful achievement of policy outcomes. These strategies include restructuring the operations of the Ministry of Sport and Youth Affairs, effecting the transition from the Sport Company of Trinidad and Tobago, Sport TT, to the Sports Commission of Trinidad and Tobago, SCOT, adoption of a business operation focus, adoption of a collaborative culture towards program development and implementation, development of the requisites, legislation, and operational guidelines to which national governing bodies, or NGBs, and other stakeholders must subscribe, and development of requisite acts, policies, and bylaws to enforce policy content, as well as to inform industrial standards. The National Policy on Sport contemplates a tiered implementation schedule spanning short, medium, and long-term frames as outlined below. Short-term, 1 year to 3 years, medium-term, 4 years to 6 years, and long-term, 7 years to 10 years.
In an effort to avoid the pitfalls of 2002 National Sports Policy, the National Sports Policy of 2017 to 2027 identifies and will rely on the development of the support framework for the implementation of the policy as outlined below. 2017 to 2022 National Sports Policy Action and Implementation Plan, 2017 to 2027 Policy Monitoring and Evaluation Framework, and 2017 to 2020 National Framework for the Development of Sport and Sport for Development. Madam Speaker, the Monitoring and Evaluation Framework is critical to the implementation of the National Policy of Sport. For the first time, a maintenance policy will also be tabled as an adjunct document to the national policy to provide guidelines for the maintenance of the country's $4 billion TT in sports assets base. Additionally, the financing of sport is to be addressed in a comprehensive sport funding policy, which speaks to several funding streams, including for elite athlete support and athlete development, including at the grassroots level. Madam Speaker, the National Policy of Sport is directly reflective of the Sport for All philosophy of Goal 6 of the National Development Strategy of Vision 2030, as it envisions the establishment of clear pathways towards holistic sport development and sporting achievement. The successful achievement of the desired output and outcomes will, as set out as in Goal 6 of the National Development Strategy, see increased citizens' participation in sport and recreational sport activities, occasions, and increase in structure programs for high-performance sport, facilitate the development and enhancement in the preparation of high-performance athletes for high-level competition, and promote Trinidad and Tobago as a regional hub for Caribbean sporting as the preferred location for international events, thereby raising our profile and income as a sports tourism destination. Madam Speaker, I thank you.
Member for Princestown.
Thank you, Madam. Madam, to the Honourable Minister, in light of the elite athlete support that the Minister speaks of in terms of the reform, can the Honourable Minister indicate to us, were these athletes consulted, seeing that several national sportsmen have indicated that no funding and have publicly disassociated themselves with the Ministry of Sport and Youth Affairs?
Minister of Sport and Youth Affairs.
Madam Speaker, the issues that we have had with elite athlete funding has nothing to do with the policy. We had consultations for the past 2 years. We all know the situation with regards to the financial situation, and we are coping with that. In terms of the consultation, we cover the length and breadth of Trinidad and Tobago consulting, of which I would recall after the Olympics in 2016, we hosted for the first time a postmortem with all the athletes, which we went through all these issues, including elite athlete funding. And with this new policy, you will see positive changes in the right direction, Madam Speaker.
Personal explanations, introductions of bill. On the supplemental order paper, the miscellaneous provisions, Supreme Court of Judicature and Children, Bill 2018, in the name of the Attorney General. Motions relating to the business or sittings of the House and moved by a Minister, Public Business.
I now call upon the member for Couva South, who I'm given leave to raise a matter of privilege under Standing Order 32-2.
Thank you. Thank you. Madam Speaker, I seek a request for leave to raise a matter of privilege under Standing Order 32-2 of the House of Representatives. In accordance with Standing Order 32-2, I seek your leave to raise a matter concerning the privileges of this House. The matter in respect of an incident which occurred in the members' dining room of the Parliament just prior to the sitting of the House of Representatives on Friday, the 9th of March, 2018, and involves the threatening and intimidating conduct of the Minister of Education and the Member of Parliament for Arima. I was verbally assaulted by the Member of Parliament for Arima because I raised issues in the public domain and in the Parliament relating to the recent closure of the Balmain Presbyterian Primary School. Erskine's May Parliamentary Practice 24 edition at page 262 makes clear that the behavior exhibited by the Member of Parliament for Arima within the precincts of Parliament may be considered a contempt. And I quote, "It is a contempt to molest a member of either house while attending the house or coming or going from it."
Honorable members, I have given leave to the member for Couva South to raise this matter. I would like to hear his contribution, please. Member for Couva South.
It is a contempt to molest a member of either house while attending the house or coming or going from it. And in the 18th century, both houses roundly condemned assaulting, insulting, or menacing lords or members going to or coming from the house or trying by force to influence them in their conduct in Parliament. Members and others have been punished for such molestation occurring within the precincts of the House, whether by assault or insulting or abusive language outside the precincts. Further, on the same page, Erskine May indicates, and I quote, "To molest the members on account of their conduct in Parliament is also a contempt. Correspondence with members of an insulting character in reference to their conduct in Parliament or reflecting on their conduct as members have all been considered contempt." I therefore submit that the threatening language and abusive behavior displayed by the Member of Parliament for Arima falls far below the accepted standard for conduct for parliamentarians and is both regretful and reprehensible. In those circumstances, I request that this matter properly be referred to the Committee of the Privileges of this House for its investigation and report.
Honorable members, by now all members are aware that ours and all other legislative bodies do enjoy certain legal privileges, powers, and immunities. For a fact, the House would regard as most serious any improper attempt to intimidate members in the performance of his or her duties. Such actions are treated as contempts of this House. May's parliamentary practice affirms that actions like threatening a member against taking part in debates and publishing posters containing threats regarding the voting of members in a forthcoming debate have in fact been proceeded against persons and have been held to be breaches in the case of the United Kingdom House of Commons. However, honorable members, to be a contempt on the ground of intimidation, there must be established that there was an accompanying threat to do something which is improper in itself, or which is of such extraordinary nature that it goes beyond an attempt to influence the member and becomes an attempt to intimidate. Honorable members, by letter to me dated March 15, 2018, which was received this morning, the member for Couva South sought and obtained my permission pursuant to Standing Order 32.2 to raise this matter as one of privilege. The matter seeks to have referred to the Committee of Privileges for consideration and report a certain statement made to him, allegedly with a degree of vigor and color, by the member for Arima in the members' dining room on March 9, 2018. The member for Couva South claims that the words of the member for Arima constituted an act of intimidation designed to deter him from fulfilling his duties as a member of this House. Honorable members, I have read the submission of the member for Couva South and the accompanying attachments. I have also noted the reports on this incident that have been published in the media. I have certainly considered this matter, and I have also carefully reviewed the relevant literature on cases like this. Further, honorable members, I have taken particular note of the fact that the member for Couva South admitted in his submission that he responded to the member for Rima in appropriate fashion so as to protect himself. In the circumstances, I find no prima facie case of breach of privilege in this matter, and I so rule.
Public business, government business, bills, second reading.
Honorable members, the debate on the second reading of the following bill, which was adjourned on Friday, March 9, 2018, will be resumed. A bill entitled An Act to Amend the Registrations of Titles, the Land Act 2000. Member for St. Joseph.
Many thanks to you, Madam Speaker, for recognizing me. Madam Speaker, we are here today to continue debate on an act to amend the Registration of Titles to Land Act 2000. Madam Speaker, the history of why we are here is long, winding, and sometimes tortuous. In 1978, the Trinidad and Tobago Law Commission, review, gave rise to 7 pieces of legislation: the Landlord and Tenant Act, the Land Law and Conveyancing Act, the Trustee Act, the Condominium Act, the Land Registration Act, the Succession Act, and the Limitation Act. But, Madam Speaker, none of those pieces of legislation were ever proclaimed. In 1991, the University of Wisconsin Land Tenure Center, on request of the Inter-American Development Bank, did a paper on such issues. And in the year 2000, a land use policy and administration project, again, was undertaken by the University of Wisconsin-Madison. Madam Speaker, land is a very emotive topic. People have died over it. People have been murdered over claims for land. It could render families apart. But when land is properly used, it has the capability of creating wealth for families, for governments, for communities. According to a study by the Law Association of 2007, implementing the land titles legislation package, it was claimed that 47% of all households in Trinidad and Tobago do not have adequate title documents. Sorry? Yes. According to the study done by the Law Association in 2007, titled Implementing the Land Titles Legislative Package. They also claim that approximately 30,000 households have no title documents, and there was widespread squatting on state and private lands. And that is why I am so happy with the Attorney General for bringing this piece of legislation to the Parliament, because there are so many benefits for land registration. Madam Speaker, if I could just go back to the days when I was courting my wife, and we would visit her Aja and Aji in Pier Road. And her Aja, his name was Jagdeo Kakandi in the constituency of Shogunas West. And this old gentleman, not well lettered, but smart, he used to sell in the Shogunas market. And when we go there, he would turn to my girlfriend, now wife, and said, "Bait, they ain't making no more." And that was a pearl of wisdom. They ain't making no more land. Right? And, Madam Speaker, in those days, I'll be married 35 years, this year. So 37 years and coming forward, when you drive down Pier Road, what you would see is the transformation of Pier Road from agricultural land, and now people put up their wonderful homes, their wonderful business places, and that is to be celebrated. The use of land to release value. And many of those lands were former agricultural lands. And that is what partly we are here about today. How do we deal with land? Because the member from Mayaro, in his submission last time, spent his entire presentation talking about agricultural lands and the use of agricultural lands for residential lands. And Madam Speaker, this is a dilemma all governments face. The competing interests, because as my wife's Arja would say, they are making no more bait, they are making no more land. How do we satisfy those primary needs of society, of humanity, where lands are being used for either residential purposes or non-residential purposes? In the constituency of Chaguanas West again, the Honorable Ganga Singh, he would have asked a question in the Parliament to the Minister of Agriculture, Terrence Rambarat, whether he would consider changing the use of lands in Monroe Road from agricultural lands to residential lands. And again, that is excellent representation. So our sons and daughters, whether you are sons and daughters of indentured laborers or sons and daughters of former slaves, you could have access to land to create wealth for your family to pass down. Because that is some of the benefits of land registration. It becomes cheaper and quicker and safer to transfer land. You have improved security of tenure. It simplifies land transaction, and it eliminates the need to go through several deeds, to search deeds and other legal documents in order to establish ownership. And for the government side, those are the benefits to the people like in Pier Road, Monroe Road. And on the government side, it assists us in proper land use planning, which is what Mayaro would have spoken to at length. It helps us with environmental planning, management and protection, equitable taxation, and tax policy options in physical planning. Madam Speaker, as I get into my contribution, I need to congratulate the Attorney General again for something, because he raised the issue of land tenure and land title in Tobago, which we know has been an issue that has been of concern to Tobagonians as separate from Trinidadians for decades. So the same ability we as Trinidadians have to realize the value of land, not only the monetary value, but the value of having something called your home to build a community. And the Attorney General in his piloting mentioned that the compulsory registration of title in Tobago will be the first destination of this new piece of law. And for that, we on this side, and I think the whole country, warmly congratulates the Honorable Attorney General. Madam Speaker, the basis of my contribution will be founded on responding to issues raised by my colleague Orupuch East, where he spoke about 10 votes in marginal constituencies, and on the contribution of the member of Mayaro, as I said, where he spoke at length about the use of farmlands, agricultural lands, and saving lands for zoning. Because, Madam Speaker, one of the issues facing us and all governments, as I said, is satisfying the basic needs, those two basic needs, which sometimes clash in the public domain about residential lands and non-residential lands, both primary societal needs. Madam Speaker, I have given the example of the constituency of Chaguanas East. Madam Speaker, and I say, I am so glad to see our sons and daughters in Pier Road, Monroe Road, on former agricultural lands, now building their big homes, and could pass it on to their children. Madam Speaker, in the constituency of St. Joseph, which I represent, you have, and also bordering with the member for St. Augustine, you have bamboo number 1, bamboo number 2, bamboo number 3. And I have been advocating, just like the member for Shogunas East, to have the lands in bamboo number 1 be designated as residential lands. Shogunas West, sorry, just like Shogunas West. You are part of that. And what is happening in bamboo number 1, bamboo number 2, bamboo number 3, even though the lands have not yet been switched to residential or commercial, communities have sprung up, businesses have sprung up. Bamboo is the home of the used car industry, the used car parts, but it's still on agricultural lands. Madam Speaker, and I must say, the use of those lands for housing and for business, I don't think has met with opposition from this side. So people were free to do as they liked with their land. Madam Speaker, under Section 3C of this bill, where we talk about a condominium portfolio, where you have to list out the condominiums you want to build and so on, I would like to turn members' attention to another part of the St. Joseph constituency, that is Arangwes. Arangwes used to be called the food basket of the nation, correct? The food basket of Trinidad and Tobago. But do you know what is happening in Arangwes now, especially on the eastern part of Arangwes? Families who are giving up agriculture are selling their lands to put up what? Condominiums. And Madam Speaker, when I say condominiums, I don't mean one condominium or two. You have 100 feet, 200 feet of condominiums. And what is happening, because those lands have not been deemed as residential lands, they are classified as agricultural lands. The people who are putting up those condominiums by the hundreds.
Madam Speaker, 48-1. We're talking about titles and registration.
Please proceed.
Madam Speaker, I am anchoring what I am saying in the bill, Section 3C, definition of condominium, Section 3F on restriction, Section 3G on land certificate. If the member would read the bill, he would see what I am saying is directly in line with the bill. And when the member of Mayaro spent 45 minutes speaking about agriculture, you did not raise a standing order. Thank you, Madam Speaker. So in Arangwes, because they don't have title for those lands as residential lands, people put up all these condominiums cash. And you know what? It's a wonderful thing. Because the people are realizing the value of their lands. And it has met with no opposition from this side. Absolutely none. I am the member of parliament for the area. Madam Speaker, areas like the Kuva Hospital is built on agricultural lands. All the sporting complexes there, built on agricultural lands. And do you know why 77,000 acres of former Caroni lands? Because there were natural springs and ponds, but now we have a hospital and we have sporting facilities. The Diwali Nagar site, Madam Speaker, was agricultural
Madam Speaker,
lands.
41, could the member link what he's trying to?
And member, I think I will uphold your objection at this time. Initially, you were talking about condominiums. Please bring this within the ambit of the legislation before us, please.
Madam Speaker, I anchor this in responding to the member of Mayaro, who spent 45 minutes speaking about agricultural lands and the use of agricultural lands. That is what I am responding to. He spent his entire contribution.
And member, I have ruled, so I'm saying, if you can show what you're saying, while you're entitled to respond, you still don't have a carte blanche. So if you could anchor what your response is, not just to what the member may have said, but also what is before us.
Madam Speaker, it is anchored simply in the bill, the ability to register title for these lands. Simple. And that is to be found in Section 13, I believe. So what we are speaking about is how do you register title for these things? So the Couva Hospital land, which was former Carney lands, how do we register that title? The Arangwes lands, how do we register that title? Right? Exactly. But what I said it is anchored in Clause 13 of the bill. In Clause 13. Madam Speaker, and again, because in Clause 13 of the bill it talks to registration, and how we use land, I want to put on record, recently there was a wake held in those lands. Yeah, there was a wake held in Bangladesh. A wake. Farm Road, yes. And Madam Speaker, those lands, because we're talking about land usage, which is Clause 9 and 10 of the bill, land usage, you have a community which is built on water aquifers. Water aquifers. And there's a wonderful little community there now. And opposite there, you have 60 families living in a nursery. 60 families already there who want land tenure. Just like the people in Monroe Road and Pier Road who want title. Of course.
Yeah. Let us make that distinction through you, Madam Speaker. The people in Monroe Road, they have leases for their lands. They built up that property. From my understanding of the community in Farm Road, they are squatters. So there is a significant title difference.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So we are now hearing, and I need to respond to that they are squatters. But do you know what happened, Madam Speaker? Listed in The Guardian of Thursday, October 17, 2013, and I need to put it on the Hansard to respond to my honorable friend from Chaguanas West, where he said the people in Bangladesh are squatters on top of the aquifer. Then candidate Ian Allen told reporters at the La Jolla complex in St. Joseph on Wednesday about a meeting with the PM, that will be the honorable member for Siparia, after he distributed certificates of comfort to 14 families from Farm Road and other areas. So if they are squatters, why would you want to regularize them? But, Madam Speaker.
Do members want to make an interjection under the standing orders? Well, then let's do it in the proper way. Continue.
I am simply responding because I gave way to the honorable member from Chaguanas West. And he was then a minister of water resources. And after Mr. Ian Allen gave out 14 certificates of comfort, and what does a certificate of comfort do? It confers a certain degree of legitimacy. Correct? It promises a certain statutory lease. But he is now saying they are squatters. But after the ceremony, Alain UNC caretaker MP for the constituency, Environment and Water Resources Minister Ganga Singh, and Land and Marine Resources Minister Jairam Simangal went on a walkabout in the Farm Road, Bangladesh area. Imagine that. So how do we register those lands? What is your objection? What is your objection? What is good for Monroe Road should be good for them too. Thank you very much. But you see, Madam Speaker, I don't intend to be too long here today because I think I have now made the point that what is Gopal Lock under the UNC cannot be CPOL Lock under the PNM. Cannot be. They are now objecting to the use of certain lands for housing. But what is good for Bamboo 1, 2, and 3 and Aranguez and Monroe Road and Pierre Road is not good for other people. According to the UNC, you must be hewers of wood and carriers of water all your life. Do as I say, but not as I do. And that is why the PNM is a nationalistic party. Madam Speaker, I thank you very much.
Member for Superior.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I rise to contribute on a bill for an act to amend the registration of titles to Land Act 2000. And before I get into the whole issue of registration and so on, I really need to respond to some of the statements my good friend made. And may I say, his wife of so many years is a great person. And he's very blessed. He's very blessed to have such a person. Of course we know her. You introduced her to me, by the way. Great person. And
She loves
so basically, the member really wanted to spend some time on land use. And I will not drift too far away, except the issue that just arose on Farm Road, because that area is very close to me. And the member utilized that and some other areas from Chaguanas West and so on, and with usual PNM venom, attempted to make a divisive statement about we deal with one way and deal with the other way. And when we said, well, whom? Tell us whom. He took his seat and said, thank you very much. Could not answer, because that is a totally erroneous statement. In fact and in law. So I answered that based on what the member has said. Because the same Farm Road issue, Madam Speaker, that is very close to me. I had to go to court on behalf of those persons when his government, when the party of which he is a member, was demolishing homes and evicting persons, even though there was a law. This Parliament passed law. This Parliament passed through the graces and through the work of a great man, a son of our soil, John Humphrey. Passed in this Parliament, under the Pandey administration, the Squatter Regularization Act. And that act allowed persons to get on the journey to obtaining title. That act is what the Farm Road residents used when I went to court. And I'm glad the minister himself said it. You said, oh, Minister MP Ganga Singh, the member for Chaguanas West, is talking about Monroe Road and squatters and not squatters and titles. This is a title issue, madam. It is a title issue, because the first step under that law was to allow people to apply for a certificate of comfort if they had been on the lands for a certain period of time. That was the first step in obtaining title. Thereafter, you would have to go, and the minister said it, you go to get statutory leases. And thereafter, you go to get a deed. Title documents. I want to ask them, what have they done to further that process? What have they done to further that process? And far be it that it was to help some people all. When the law is passed in this Parliament, at least the law that we passed under the first UNC government, and when we were there as a UNC partition, we passed law for all of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. And that act protected citizens everywhere to give them these certificates of comfort. And so we did that matter. We looked at lands in Diego Martin. I had several meetings with persons there who were also being evicted. I wonder if you remember, prior to 2009, how many people were on mattresses, thrown out stove, everything they had, out on the streets, wailing, crying with their children and their families because they were being evicted. I went into Diego Martin, I went into Couva, I went into Superior, I went all over this country. But under the same piece of law, to protect them. So we move away from that, madam, just to correct, what the honourable member is saying in this divisiveness that is always being, being touted by members on the other side. So here we are on the registration of titles land amendment bill. And madam, I really want to pay tribute to the Parliament staff today, because this bill that we have is seeking to amend acts that were passed in the year 2000, 18 years ago, madam. And thanks to the work from the Parliament website, I was able to trace, as I'm sure other members were able to trace, over 18 years, the genesis and development of this law. I want to thank the Parliament for that. Otherwise, it would have been very difficult, you know, to follow what took place. So let's thank them. Many members have already talked about the importance of land and the benefits of land titles and so on. We will not want to repeat those, except to say we must remember that it's constitutional protection for property, which includes lands. Of course, due process and so on. So, that being said, the Honourable Attorney General, in piloting these bills, was very long on the history, the genesis and evolution of these bills, going way back into the 1981 and prior to 1981. Very long on that. But it was a very, it was like cherry picking the historical development of from then to now with respect to registration of titles in our country. And so whilst we appreciate that historical journey, many important elements in that journey from then to now have been left out. And so I will spend a few moments in my contribution to point out to some of those. Further, I was very surprised, and I did mention it to the Honourable Attorney General, because I think his intentions are good intentions with respect to this package of bills. And I did say, you know, I expected that we would have had some more information about where we've reached in the RGD with registration of titles, where we've reached after 20 years, because it's 2000 these laws were passed, where we've reached with respect to the cadastral in the Lands and Service Department and the maps and the plans, because when we see the purposes of the Parent Act for which these bills are amendments, clearly those are very important factors in dealing with an overhaul, very important overhaul of the land registration system titles in Trinidad and Tobago. So clause 2 now of this act, takes us to the Parent Act. And the AG did speak about the Parent Act, so I do not think I'm out of place or irrelevant in going to the Parent Act, because we are attempting to amend that Parent Act. And let's see what that act, the purpose of that, and therefore what these amendments are meant to do with respect to that parent law. That parent law, what time did I start? The Parent Law, Act 16 of 2000, as I said, 18 years ago, about 18 years ago, was an act to provide for a register of land titles, to provide for registration of estates and interests in land in that register. So what we're doing, we're establishing a register. Oh, madam, we have a register in the RGD's department now, but this is to set up a whole new way, a process and storage for land titles, estates, and interests in land. This act, madam, Parent Act, as a registration of titles land act, and shall come into operation on a date to be fixed by the President by proclamation published in the Gazette. So the original act, not proclaimed, 18 years later. I have a question through you to the Honourable Attorney General. You'll kindly clarify in my mind. The bill that we are doing, in fact the others as well, to amend these parent laws, they do not have a proclamation date. Is it then they will be assented to? Because there are two ways things we pass here, bills come into law, by proclamation or assent. Is it then that we are going to delay the assent of this bill, or is it that this will be assent to while the 2000 is not proclaimed? So you can just clarify that. Sure.
Thank you, Honourable Leader of the Opposition. Just to correct, perhaps you missed it, and because we have so many that are related, Section 1 of the Registration to Title Lands Act, number 16 of 2000, the Act may be cited as and shall come into operation on a date to be fixed by the President by proclamation. So there's a proclamation clause in the original legislation.
So I'm asking, what is the position with the amended bill, which does not so have a proclamation clause? That's what I'm asking.
Understood. Thank you again, Honourable Leader. This being an amendment to an unproclaimed law, upon assent, it'll retrofit into the unproclaimed law, and then the unproclaimed law will be proclaimed in the fashion that it should.
Sure. And then do we have a proposed date for such proclamation? I've raised this point many times before. We have dates for proclamation, but, you know, time passes. Like the parent law, 18 years later, still not proclaimed. Wow. So do we have some time frame within which to proclaim? So the parent law then, madam, it makes every parcel of land for which a folio of the register is established under the Act. It applies to every folio of land, indeed to all lands in the country. And the purposes of the Act were to provide certainty of ownership of interest in land, simplify proof of ownership, facilitate economic and efficient execution of transaction with respect to interest in land, provide compensation for persons who sustain loss in the circumstances set out, and to carry out those purposes, what must happen, madam? And 20 years later, where are we with respect to what should have happened with infrastructural development of the RGD and lands and surveys and so on? So to carry out these purposes, the Act provides for the establishment of a parcel-based register of land brought under this Act, and I'll return to that, for the use of a unique parcel reference number to identify each parcel of land. Where have you reached? How many parcels of land have this UPRN? How many of them are there? How many is still left to be done? What is the infrastructure and time frame for that to be done? Further purpose, establishing ownership of interest by land registration, establishing priority of enforcement, establishing procedures to manage land registration process, and the maintenance of records in a particular kind of format. Madam, that Act, which we are seeking to amend today, was groundbreaking legislation in the history of Trinidad and Tobago. And today I commend a great lawyer and a great Attorney General, Ramesh Lawrence Maraj, who brought that 2000 Act 16, well, the bill for that Act, replacing the Real Property Act of Chapter 5602, which itself dates back to the Real Property Ordinance 1945 and 1947, and thereafter several amended acts, the last being 72 of 2000. So what we are doing is really bringing our law, land registration law, up to date, which as against something that existed for 52 years. And that's why I say it was groundbreaking when it was brought to this Parliament in the year 2000. And so what we are seeing, this Act, when put into force, together with these amendments, for the first time in history, will establish a parcel-based registration system in accordance with Section 2 of the Act, and it would apply to every parcel of land for folio, of which a folio of the register is established, and that folio will be registered eventually for every parcel of land. So we're talking about all of Trinidad and Tobago for lands to be so parceled. The question now arises, as we are 18 years since that parent law came, and we are now amending. When that parent law came, the then Attorney General, Ramesh Lawrence Maraj, made it very clear. In fact, came to Parliament, laid those bills, this one included, the package, laid this, and said very clearly that, look, I'm going to look for some public comment, in other words, consultations. And this bill, and the others, went out for public comment, and that public comment was incorporated into 2000. Now, here we are. I mean, when this goes, as I'm saying, a really major change in the land law of Trinidad and Tobago. Have any further consultations been held since 18 years ago when the original bill came in? Will these things still hold today? We had them in 2000, prior to 2000, to pass the parent law. Have there been, Honourable Attorney General, through you, any further consultations as to whether something passed 18 years ago is still relevant in the context of Trinidad and Tobago at this time? And, Madam, I managed to get some comments that someone passed to me with respect to concerns 18 years later, now these amending bills. In the light of having regard to the fact that this bill and the one that it is amending, it may lengthen and complicate the registration process in the RGD's department at the moment, which is ill-equipped to handle the current volume of transactions, but will also open a flood of litigation, possibly for determination by an already overburdened judicial system. These are some of the concerns. We would see the law now, as we propose for it to be, constitutes a fundamental and radical departure from established practice in the sphere of conveyancing and land registration. And the package really, the package, well, I'm speaking of this one at the moment, this package is said to achieve a systematic adjudication process with legal interests and so on. But we continue that the RGD's department is already overburdened, understaffed, and ill-equipped really for the many transactions that will now be coming their way and which you'll be required to do. And in fact, that same book the Honorable Attorney General referred to, the Wiley book, I bought one when I was in law school. We were all excited because land law was so way back into, as I said, 52, over 50 years. Well, here we're going to get this new package of land laws, the 1981 package, and this book was written to explain the 1981 package that AG spoke of. So we bought the book, but here's what Wiley said way back then. Huh? What did he say? He said this. He noted the department as being deprived of resources necessary to make it run efficiently and do the job it was intended to, lacked sufficient skilled staff to do the technical work demanded, apart from suffering from overall shortage of manpower, equipment had become inadequate, this together with unattractive civil service rates of money payments, make it unlikely that the manpower problem will be solved quickly, creating a morale problem for existing staff. And he concluded that issues were worsened by the department having to do so many jobs and administer so many different types of registration system. Now, these criticisms were over 30 years, and now we are over 30 years later. What has changed, if anything at all, to, as I say, to improve the work at the RGD's department from then to now, as we now propose to put up a much stronger workload, heavier workload on that department? The AG also spoke about, using lands and referencing land and registering lands and tied that with the ease of doing business. He was totally correct in so doing, madam. Because the ease of doing business report lists as one of its components registering property. And that's what we're doing here today, talking about how to change our system of registering and storing titles to land. So when we look at that ease of doing business report that AG referred to, we see that we have fallen on the ease of doing business index. We have fallen in rank, so that we stand now at rank 1 or 2. We have fallen down in the ranking of ease of doing business. Whereas we were at another rank at a different time, 60-something, we've now gone, when we were there, it's gone now to 102. But when we look at registering properties, madam, again, ease of doing business, with respect to which is what we're dealing with, we see we now stand at 151, rank 151. Now, madam, that may sound okay, not so bad. But when we look around us, and we know Trinidad and Tobago tends to be a little more developed, I should say, than some of our neighbors. When we look at the picture in Latin America and the Caribbean, which is our region, and this is how the DBR is presented, we see, for example, when it comes to registering property, we have rankings that are way below our neighbors. So how does Trinidad and Tobago compare with comparator economies and rank on the ease of registering property? Jamaica is better than us. Grenada is better than us. Trinidad and Tobago, Dominica, Suriname in the region. The regional average is a rank of 118, but we are at a rank of, for registering businesses, 151. Then when we look at, again, where do the region's economies stand today? Again, on the rank of ease of registering property, Trinidad and Tobago at 151. Here we are. Who's better than us here, madam? Again, Guyana. Do you believe it? Antigua and Barbuda. Jamaica. Yeah. Belize, Barbados, Grenada. And that's where we are. This is Latin American Caribbean, but I'm calling it Caribbean countries as comparator countries, which is what the DBR gives us in registering property. What it takes to register properties in the economies in the LAC, in Latin America and the Caribbean, again, Trinidad and Tobago. We take here data collected by the DBR, World Bank, show what it takes to complete a property transfer in each economy in the region, the number of procedures, that it takes and the cost. For us, it takes 9 procedures. This is the 2018 report, by the way. 9 procedures. And when we compare these with the region, again, there are so many others who can get it done faster and with less procedures. When we look at the cost again, Trinidad and Tobago, the cost of registering property, again, our cost is relatively high to those within the region. When we come to the time that we take, Trinidad and Tobago to register a property, time in days, an average of 77 days, madam. Wow. So if you go and buy a piece of land, it takes you an average of 77 days from this report to. So there are others, as I say, who are worse off than us, and there are others who are much better off than us. And perhaps this bill and this law may assist us in increasing or decreasing our rank or looking better, doing better in the rankings for registering property. So I draw this to our attention and to say that we do have a lot of work to do in terms of ease of doing business, and this may be one of the reasons. I can't say directly that we have fallen in the DBR's ease of doing business. The AG spent some time on the history of these bills, and just very shortly, 25 years ago, 1991-92, a package of 7 pieces of legislation coming out of a 1978 review by the Law Commission. AG pointed out none of these 7 have been proclaimed to date, which is 36 years later now. That report recommended a new land registration system. So this was in 1991-92. Little was done until the UNC took office in 1995. And then a team under the Law Commission drafted legislation. Another team was appointed by Legal Affairs to put infrastructure. That bill was drafted, and that brought us into the 2000 Parent Act that we are now speaking about. Just a synopsis of the history there. We went out of office in 2010. So in 2000, yes, passed, went out of office 2010, yes. What was done between 2001, so we passed in 2000, and then there's that gap up till 2010. Again, 10 years, not proclaimed. So between 2001 and 2010, during the PNM's administration, not proclaimed after we passed it. 2010 now to the present. After we came into office in 2021, we again looked at the 2010 Act, and we laid amending bills in 2011 and twice in 2012, bills to amend the Registration of Titles, Act 16 of 2000. Given the exigencies of parliamentary time, those bills were not passed, they lapsed, and I think MP for St. Augustine will talk a little more of that under his tenure, what happened in that time. So here we are in 2018 with this bill to amend the Act. And, you know, in the main, the AG did say we laid the 2011 and 12 bills and so on, but neglected, maybe not deliberately so, to make a very important point. And that very important point really puts us on this side in a position to consider seriously supporting these bills. And I'll tell you why. To begin with, the government's bill that is before us is 99.9% a recycled UNC partnership bill. The explanatory note in the government's bill is identical to that of the UNC partnership bill. All 3 of them, save and except for about 6 items, which I'll come to in a moment. The 2017 bill of this government proposed to have 23 clauses. We had 21 clauses, to which I shall return, because again, the additional clauses may just be semantics and numbering. And the provisions in the 2017 bill are identical to the UNC partnership bills, the same 3, they were all basically the same, except for about 6 items. I will come back to that. So indeed, this government has been recycling UNC partnership bills as their own for the past 2.5 years in office. And it's quite okay, because if it was good, and it's still good. We are very happy for that. But when you come to the parliament, you said we laid the bills. Why didn't you acknowledge it then? That your bill Your 2017 bill is about 99% the same as those bills. Why? Why?
Plagiarism.
Why? You know, some will say you're really huffing and puffing and plagiarizing the work of the UNC partnership because you don't acknowledge where you get it from. You didn't say that. And so, not only with this legislation, 2.5 years in midterm with nothing to show for achievements, they have attempted to shamelessly, I say, huff these bills as well as UNC and partnership projects. It speaks volumes about the lack of vision of this government. So I say again, except for those, some concerns we have, this bill having come out of the bowels of the UNC partnership, almost 99%, and I'll say the main amendment, one amendment that really was different in a substantial way, you know, I have serious concerns and I will raise it. So let's look at your amendments. I said there were about 6. And in looking at those amendments, again, all you're doing is tinkering with a word here and a comma there and a capital letter A and a common letter O and a capital A and O. Really, really, really nothing of substance. Nothing of substance. Let's look at your amendments in the bill. Your clause 3 of the 2017 bill. This is one. I said there were 6 proposed amendments in this bill that are different from those from the UNC partnership bills. The first one has to do with the definition of adjudication officer, clause 3. And so we are amending clause 3 of the Act to delete certain definitions and so on. And your clause 3 wants us to delete the definition of adjudication officer, replace it with a reference to the Land Adjudication Act. That's your change. So your clause 3 is basically the same as the UNC thing that you recycled, huh? Save and except for a change. Well, let's see what's so major about this change to adjudication officer. What's new here? The explanatory note of our 2012 bill and the ones prior is identical to the explanatory note in your 2017 bill. Save and accept to change the definition of adjudication. What's new? 2.5 years, madam, to tinker with this bill, to give the appearance of having achieved something, done something, 2.5 years, 30 months later. You know, and let's look at it, the actual clause, you delete the definition of adjudication. And what do? You put the new definition. What's the new definition? What's the new definition you want us to put in? Adjudication officer has a meaning assigned to it by Section 2 of the Land Adjudication Act. Hello, now, what are you amending? When we look at the Act itself tells us, so there was no need to amend that. Adjudication officer means adjudication officer under the Land Adjudication Act. Section 3 of Act 16 of 2000. Land Adjudication Act 14 of 2000 tells us it's an adjudication office under Section 4 of that Act. And so there is absolutely, it's like, what do you call it, six of one, half a dozen of the other. I mean, really, did it take you 2.5 years to come up with this brilliant something? Might help in cosmetics and semantics, madam, but there's absolutely no change in substance. So we spend time on that. I could go on more with that whole change in it, because even in the Land Adjudication Act, you see where they keep referring, whatever item it is, there's a definition as per the Act, as per the Act, as per the Act. What's wrong? What is so major to change this? Come to your second amendment proposed. You are changing clause 18. In clause 18, you want to change is guilty, take out the word commits an offense, and instead insert what? Is guilty. Really? I mean, you don't take a rocket scientist. And 2.5, if you commit the offense, you're guilty. So again, it's 6 and 6. No. Why should I give way? He never gives way to me. I'll give way to you, and not to him.
Okay, so we all understand that it's discretion on the part of the Speaker to give way. If the Speaker refuses to give way, well, we all accept that and proceed. Member for Superior, please.
Very much, madam. So here we have again changing is guilty, changing commits to is guilty, okay. You think that is a tidy way of doing it, go ahead. But again, 2.5 years, not a rocket scientist amendment. So that's the second amendment you're proposing. Third amendment proposed is in clause 21. Again, it's the same. Changing commits an offense and putting instead is guilty of. That's 3 of your 6 amendments that I'm saying are different from the ones before.
Inconsequential.
Then you come to, that's clause 21, which dealt with guilty and commits. And then Amendment 4. Clause 21 has some other amendments, and basically is to insert a new section 85. But basically, when you look at the clause 21 in the 2012 bill, all you've done is to change a little numbering and whatever here, break it up and insert some numbers, and it's the same. It's the same. So one other amendment, this is number 6. Number 5, clause 23, guess what this major amendment is? Clause 23 would make a consequential...
Your original 30 minutes are now spent. You're entitled to 15 additional minutes to complete your contribution if you wish, and therefore, if you wish, you can proceed.
Madam, I will take the extra time. Amendments proposed. Clause 23 would make a consequential amendment based on amendment of the term adjudication officer in section 2. You know what it is? Change the capital letter A for adjudication officer and change it to a comma, and change the capital letter for officer and put it to a comma. Brilliant, brilliant. But there is one amendment, clause, which is clause 20 of your bill, that gives me serious concern. So those are minor, minor things. So 6 amendments, basically a recycled UNC bill, you've tinkered with, and now this is the one that I have a really serious problem with. Clause 20, making amendments to section 73. And in this, your explanatory note is identical to our explanatory note. But you know what, where there's a sleight of hand here, is that the clause is different. So even though you give the same explanatory note as our bill and your bill, what you come here now is to deceive in a sense. And what you're amending, whereas before any person could go to the land registry and so on and have sight of documents and do searches, this is now changed to delete any person. And instead to put what? An attorney at law or a clerk.
Friend and family.
Now what about the poor person can't pay a lawyer to run a search?
Correct.
What you've done, you made an amendment saying they could do an electronic search, but as MP Munila, member for Orapooch East, pointed out, the system is not working, it's down. And up to today, I tried last week, this backup went, I tried just before I came into this chamber. And even when it's a hit and miss, madam. So you're giving poor people, you say, oh, do electronic search. Which poor person wants a computer thing to run search? In any case. So if you remove that right of an ordinary citizen to go in and search records, why? Why are you removing that right? Why? You have to go and pay a lawyer. I mean, I am a lawyer too, but I could do without those fees. Why are we propping up the lawyers to make more money off poor people who want a search? Yeah, I have a parliament salary I can live on. I am not very extravagant. I can live off my parliament salary. So, madam, here we are, madam. Some lawyers will find out about them shortly. I'm sure you will tell us if you deign to speak. So here we are, deceptive here, removing any person and whatever. And earlier, the member for St. Joseph gave me a nice little opening because he said about the nurseries in St. Augustine and agricultural land and so on. Madam Speaker, I have been trying. Today I tried it, and this week, this same electronic system which is not working, to do a search to find out if the Commissioner of State Lands has transferred lands to the HSC at the St. Augustine nurseries as cabinet minute by the cabinet. The cabinet said even though these lands are for agriculture, the government, through its cabinet, mandated the Commissioner of State Lands to transfer the St. Augustine nurseries to the HGC, and we know what that was for. So when you talk about condominiums where in Aranguez and Food Basket, isn't that what you want to build in the St. Augustine nurseries? Member for St. Joseph? You don't want me to see what are the terms of that particular document that I cannot search it, even on the electronic site? It can be found. I tried it, my staff tried it just before we came here. And that is where I am very concerned, Honourable AG, through the Speaker, this amendment to Clause 73, removing the fact that any person could have gone and searched and so on in the registry. And what is very interesting, another great lawyer in conveyancing, Barry Sinanan, when this bill was being, then MP Barry Sinanan, when this bill was being debated in the House in 1999, he said, he asked the then AG, I hope that any person could still go and search. And then he said, oh, I see the AG saying yes. He said, I'm very happy about that. Because if you know, and these are his words, I'm summarizing him. He said that because if you don't, there may be politicians who want to hide certain things. And don't want the ordinary citizen. Don't want the ordinary citizen to be able to see these things. Now, I won't attack, who is it? Some minister who has lands up by the nurseries there and so on, and has lands by the Cape Donna, and wherever the lands are. I wouldn't go there yet. I won't talk about, lands that I'm searching deeds for. I have the deeds here finally. I was able to get them. Where a minister buys a piece of land somewhere in Maraval for a 1 hectare land, for whatever reduced price, some river, something that was about. Won't go there. I'll move on. I'll move on because time is limited. So, Madam, the condominium issue, MP spoke about it, MP for St. Joseph, but I will leave it for another member. I'll pass it to them. I have an issue about the regulations and the forms. The AG in his, I'll pass your deeds for you, if you so wish them. The minister may make regulations to give effect. This was the parent law. 18 years later, no regulations. But interestingly, when San Fernando West was speaking, remember, he said in the period 04 to 05, there were widespread consultations, and on April 4, 2005, I don't know, that should read 2015, this is the Hansard at page, AG's Hansard, page 9. He said, a report was produced and regulations were settled. This is in the hand. Where are these regulations at? Why don't we have sight of them so we can see how they will work together? Where are the regulations 18 years later? And if the AG's statement is correct, 2005, well, where are we now? 13 years later, where are these regulations? Let's talk about money now, because all this added money, all these added, can I have these? All this added work. But you know something? In the estimates of expenditure for the financial year 2018, first of all, this one, Madam, deals with the, this one deals with the staffing. There is no increase in the establishment in the 2018 estimates. And then, no, I'm not interested in that. Then we have recurrent expenditure, again, 2018, no increase in allocations. And then we have, I'm not showing it, I'm just reading. I was doing that and I pulled it back. No, I pulled it back. And then the draft estimates of the development program 2018, again, no additional monies allocated. So is there going to be, Diego Martin Ortiz, Minister of Finance, will be telling us about, when he makes a statement later, that he's going to give some more money to these various departments to carry out all their work. No increase in monies. No increase in monies allocated. We've already spoken about this long complaint from the title clerks of the problems at there. So I have about 5 minutes? 8 minutes. 8 minutes. But there are two projects I really would like to speak of. One has to do with the Land and Service Division, and one has to do with the Registrar General's Department. The AG spoke a lot about it, and the parent law and whatever is about getting survey plans, doing plans, cadastral management, and so on. First of all, the accommodation at that office for the members of the Director of Surveys, General Post Office, I'm told this building was condemned many years ago to be demolished. The old Post Office building where the Director of Surveys, part of the staff is there, condemned, yes. And, you know, the building is in such a bad condition, Honorable Teacher. You may want to take a look. There's so much more work to be done. You know, dilapidated walls falling apart, blah, blah, blah. Not placing any blame, but given this workload that you plan to put, we need to look at it. And what is interesting, you know, I saw a photograph. The door says exit. Exit on the door. Do not open. Exit. So it's like a fire trap, but the exit, you cannot open. You cannot get out of the building. So it's really bad. The accommodation is really bad. The staffing is very bad, very understaffed. going on for a while now. And in addition, the Director of Service, there is no substantive Director of Service. I am told that we did some, what you call it? Interviews have been done. Interviews have been done. 2 sets of interviews with director, and none. No one is appointed. Very bad state of affairs. Then there are issues of corruption at that land and service and throughout the whole system, because they're all interlinked and interrelated with the CMOH, with health, with the local government authorities. That's a serious matter because they all interact. If you have to get a plan approved, you have to send it down to public health, all the others. And they're serious. I have documented things people sent me, but that is a matter, AG. You want to follow the money? Maybe you should put some of these officers under the FIU and put them as PEP. Is it PEP? PEP. Because when they can't get the plan done fast enough, you know what happens. You may want to put them under your follow money, the follow money track that you have. That's land and service. So let's look at the project. This is a SIMS. It's called CMIS, the Cadastral Management Information Project. This was a project begun based on a contract that was signed by, I believe, it was signed in, Dr. Tiwari, was this the one you signed? Way back. I just have a few minutes.
Go ahead, please.
Yeah, I just have a few minutes. Yeah, I have 4 minutes. This project began. The state of play in this project there's a roadmap. They completed the project. This was for the cadastral management system for the lands and surveys. Now, this whole land law package we are putting will not work without that cadastral mapping system in place in service. And CMIS finished in January, it finished in 2015. What is the state of play? I've been seeing the PMRs for these. Thank God these things are online. So when you go up online, this is IDB loan, you will see where we've reached. And if you look at the PMR or have it here, the updates going forward, you will see, look, we were supposed to have X amount of these digitized, scanned in the system, not happening. And so you'll see 2016, 2017 is the same amount, 352, with an expectation to do 1 point something million. Remember, parcel land has to come under this unique parcel reference number. Not going to happen, madam. We may be here, not me, some will be here. 20, how many years we said, 18? 18 years later since we passed them in 2000, and this may be 18 years later because you don't have the infrastructure. I will ask you, through the Honourable Attorney, through you, Madam, AG, please take the roadmap, the project roadmap, to get this CMIS, the Cadastral Management Information System, because I don't think you may be fully aware. I know the AG's office is very busy, and some of these things get swept by the wayside. The other project that you may want to look at is the one strengthening the information management at the RGD's department. Again, please take a look. This is the one which tells you so many passes, up to over 1 million passes, but we've only done a very small portion. Thanks. This is the one I believe was signed by the Honourable then Minister Botiwari. Was signed in 2014. And that project for assessment and making recommendations has been completed. And you have the updates for the few years since 2015. This will help a lot if you really want to get it done. So, AG, I commend your government for some words you said when you started, which is the continuity of successive administrations. But I fear the 18 years, nothing happened, that we will go into another 18 years without this if you do not do the infrastructure. And what time I'm stopping? 2 minutes? 1 minute? 3:30. 30. Okay. 3:30. Yeah. Okay. And while you're looking at that, we're talking about titles to land. And really, for poor people, we talk about land, we bury our navel string, and land is such a vital commodity, such a vital asset for all of us. The registration process is very, very important. Can you also take a look at what has happened to the Land for Landless program? Over 400 persons elected on TV, national TV. There was a draw, qualified, all over the country. And again, it wasn't for some or the other. There was a draw, I think it was a random draw. Can you please have a look? Because they would, right would have been accrued when they came in that draw, Land for the Landless, as we talk about land. So with those words, Madam, I thank you very much for the time and the Parliament's time. I commend you, AG, for the continuity, but I think there is still so much more work to be done. We will be looking to support you, but I still want to hear about the amendments to Section 73, where you're leaving out the ordinary man, the poor man. Anyone could go in and try to search. That's right. Don't send me to the electronic, because I don't have, the person I'm speaking of may not have the computers on. And then even when I go, it's not functioning properly. The root of it all is still the manual records, and we should have access. Every citizen should have access as they've had over time. I thank you very much.
Member for Moruga Tableland.
Humorless as usual. Good afternoon, Madam Speaker. Good afternoon to members on both sides of themselves. It is my absolute pleasure to stand to make a contribution on this bill this afternoon. Madam Speaker, I have the distinct pleasure, in inverted commas, of once again speaking after the member for Siparia, who is a lawyer of some note. And of some note, supposedly. And I could make the error of attempting to respond in any coherent way to something I have heard before, which is 45 minutes of attempting to, once again, support or justify a term in government that most citizens in this country find unjustifiable. But there will be no point to that. As has often been the case in responding in this way, there is no point to it. Madam Speaker, I really want to commend the Attorney General for bringing this bill to the floor, a good bill. And a bill that has been adjusted and improved by the PNM. And there are a number of ways that one could respond to this issue. One could go down the legalistic way, and lawyers are bound in this House on both sides, and perhaps it is best left to them to debate and look at the fine points of the legal arguments involved here. One could go down the pedantic common A, capital A methodology of the member for Siparia, or one could understand that even though abstract and even though legalistic, a bill of this nature has the potential to make a fundamental impact on the lives of a number of people. Madam Speaker, I say so given the fact that I am the representative of a constituency within which issues of title and issues of land registration are of poignant, everyday importance. Madam Speaker, I was at Grand Chemin in Moruga this morning, and something interesting has happened. A telegraph cable that has not been seen for generations has been unearthed and is now a spectacle in the community. At very low tide, you see this cable that was laid sometime in the 1890s, meaning that for a while, even though often forgotten, Moruga was a significant part of a communication system that operated in this country. That cable is only now visible because of the amount of sea erosion happening on the coastline. What is happening in Cedros and other areas is very much
Madam Speaker,
affecting the coastline of Moruga.
Member for Moruga Tableland, I'm going to give you some leeway to develop your point within the context of the bill.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So I'll help the member for Pritchardstown with his lack of historical comprehension. Madam Speaker, We live on a very small island, a very finite landmass. And if it is normally the case that land is power and land is significant, on a landmass such as ours, as small as it is absolutely so. Land is very critical. And moreover, given our history of colonialism, land and the ability to show title or the ownership of that land was absolutely critical. Madam Speaker, it has been our history that for very long, only certain people were allowed to have or to show title. And the ability to own land and to show title for that land was a struggle and a fight for the majority of this nation. Madam Speaker, that history is supposedly long gone. But there are some parts of Trinidad and Tobago where that struggle is still ongoing. And I happen to represent one of the constituencies where the fight for title is ongoing. Madam Speaker, I grew up in a very pristine community. Number of loving characters, number of colorful characters. But there was one gentleman who lived across the road from me, and his name was Mr. Joseph. As a child, I never knew whether his first name was Mr. Joseph, or his last name. Everyone called him Mr. Joseph. The reason, one of the main reasons why he was called such is because he was one of the few persons in the village who was actually an owner of land and actually someone who could show title. And that conveyed on him or rested on him a certain gravitas that the typical person in the village did not have. Title was important. Title is important. Title, I'm not called Mr. I'm called Doctor, just like you. Just a different kind. Madam Speaker, the issue of title remains important. Madam Speaker, and I'll give you a number of examples existing right now that in their own way help to validate the fact that this law is now standing once again on the floor of this parliament. Madam Speaker, it is well known by now, even though a few years ago it was not so well known, that there is a community in my constituency called American people. They, of course, very short history, are descended from enslaved Africans who fought for the British against the Americans in the War of 1812. At the end of the war, they were transported to Trinidad and settled in the south of Trinidad, specifically in Moruga. Each family was granted land by the Crown. So they were recipients of land long before emancipation and long before it was actually legal for people of African origin in this country to own land. The caveat to all this is given the circumstances of the society at the time, they were never granted title to those lands. Madam Speaker, fast forward 200 years. The descendants of these people still live in the constituency of Moruga Tableland. And the member for Naparima, if he hasn't lost his identity entirely, knows much about this because he is descended from the same history. They live in first company, third company, fourth company, fifth company, sixth company. And they exist in a peculiar and confusing situation in terms of the title for their land. They live on what they still call in 2018 crown lands, or granted lands, or minus lands. And they exist in a vortex where the issue of title is concerned. So it is a case that each family was granted 16 acres, reminiscent of the whole schedular population arrangement. And this land has been passed down from generation to generation for 2 centuries in the absence of any title. So basically, this is what happens. If you are descended from one of these families, you have an ancestral idea of the parcel of land granted to your family. And let's say you want to build a house. You will go to whoever is the patriarch of the family existing today and say, okay, I'm having a family, or I'm old enough, I want to build a house. And if he is of that mind, he will simply say, okay, you pick a portion, or he will guide you to a portion, or however the particular family chooses to construct the thing, and you get a piece of land and you build a house. But understand, there is and has been for 2 centuries, Madam Speaker, no legal title to this land. So it is absolutely impossible for anyone from any of these communities to go to the bank, get a loan. It is absolutely impossible for the patriarch or anyone in charge of these lands to decide, okay, we're going to survey and parcel this land. It is absolutely impossible for you to decide, maybe I want to sell this land and move on, or maybe I want to invest or mortgage or do any kind of financial transaction that any other person in this country who has title is privy to and is able to. It is absolutely impossible. So we have a peculiar situation here with a very large community, numbering the thousands of people who control ostensibly large parcels of land that they have no title to, and they exist in absolute legal limbo. Now, I am a professional historian, so I was historically well aware of the circumstance. Very early in my tenure, I went to the Attorney General and I explained to him this entire situation. Added to that, in front of one of the Joint Select Committees that I am a member of, I was actually very fortunate to get some of the elders of the community to come and speak in front of the Select Committee on the particular and peculiar issues that they face historically. Madam Speaker, our Constitution gives people the right to own property. We have a very absurd, very ironic historical situation where we have citizens who have been here, their families have been here for 2 centuries, and they do not have that constitutional right to show title for lands that they have owned. If it is that this PNM government now, via this mechanism, is able to ensure that lands are properly registered, we will have righted a 200-year wrong. And that alone, Madam Speaker, that alone is well worth the legalese and the abstract discussion and the comma here and the capital A there and the common A there. Because done properly, a land registration has the ability to give to thousands of citizens. And the fact that they are from the constituency that I represent doesn't make it any more or less significant. The fact that they are citizens and they have a right to this is of absolute importance. So, Madam Speaker, they are merely one example of the kinds of headaches that occur in rural areas where land tenure is concerned. I could point to a number of others. They might be less prosaic. It does not mean that they are less significant. Madam Speaker, anybody who has lived in a rural constituency has heard something like this before. You own a piece of land for which you have title, wherever you got it from. And maybe for a month or two, you encounter difficult times. And you don't have money for maybe basic things, to pay a bill, to buy groceries, whatever it is. And what was customary is that you would go to the local shop owner and you would say to him or her, well, hold this, deed of mine in lieu of the money I will pay to you when I get back on my feet. And that kind of arrangement was customary, or sometimes maybe is customary today in a limited scale in rural communities. And what often happened, Madam Speaker, is when the real landowner went back to the person who they pawned their title to, pawned their deed to, the person has mysteriously forgotten. They can't remember the transaction. They never received any deed. And because in rural communities, you oftentimes didn't have the kind of funding to go and find a lawyer, or there was not a lawyer present, or there wasn't one in your family, many people lost their land. And it sounds ridiculous, it sounds absurd, but it happened every day. Madam Speaker, in my community now, there are many people who claim to be landowners that if you really investigate in even the most cursory way, they don't own any land. We have families that have lost land for generations by no mean, no fair feat. We have people who had friends back in the day in the warden's office, and if you spoke to the right person and you provided the right inducement or you paid the right tax, your land was lost. Madam Speaker, it is now the case in Muruga and a number of rural communities. I'm sure the member for Mayaro, if he were here.
Madam Speaker, 48-1, if the member will just tie in.
Member, please proceed.
Madam Speaker, thank you. Once again, the member for Barataria, someone proves his lack of comprehension. Madam Speaker, this bill is about setting up a registration for land. I am talking about how these issues can affect the lives of people, but perhaps the member has never met a person, so he doesn't know. Madam Speaker, I am aware of families in my community that have labored. In fact, I'll use the correct historical term, that have sweated on estates providing labor like beasts of burden, and then by accident, they found out that the lands that they were sweating on belonged to them. Madam Speaker, it is now the case in many rural communities that title, correct title for land, is often, more often than not, only found out by accident. And I'll give you an example of an accident. In the 1990s, when I was a primary school teacher, a pipeline company called API came to Muruga as part of that large pipeline that they were running from Guaya to Point Lisas. And the thing about that is that, given the nature of how they operate, they have to determine the provenance of land. So they do the kind of search that the typical citizen in a rural community either cannot afford to, isn't aware of, is not able to organize. And because of that pipeline passing through parts of the community, a number of families that had their land removed from their ownership by all sorts of scurrilous and spurious means had their lands returned to them. We are a democratic government. We have been for 50 years. We've thrown off the shackles of colonialism. It should not be in this day and age that a fundamental right guaranteed by our Constitution can only be affirmed or carried through by accident. When we have a parliament that has functioned for generations that makes statutory laws. Madam Speaker, that is untenable. Madam Speaker, I'm not a lawyer. I understand the law. I could go through the clauses, and I could talk all sorts of abstract things. Because there is no point in it. Because there are people here better qualified, or
Madam Speaker,
supposedly better qualified to do that.
48-1, please, Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker, Madam Speaker, this law properly constituted. The registry it hopes to create, properly formulated, digital or otherwise, can make a leap in terms of something absolutely critical to our citizens. If we are able to find, via this law, a fair and legal and right way to ensure that title is conferred on those on whom it should be conferred, to ensure that title can be transferred to those who they deem it should be transferred to ensure that corruption and interference and inducement does not interfere with that process, then this parliament would have done its job. This government would have done something great for the citizens of this nation. Madam Speaker, it is nice to talk about the law in a very abstract and aloof way, but oftentimes the law affects the lives of people in a meaningful way. If at the end of a process, regardless of how long it takes, the American people of Moruga can hold up in their hand the title that they've been denied for 2 centuries, then this parliament would have done its job. And Tobago. And maybe Shakaramas. Because people in our country have had their titles taken away in ways that are questionable. And if it is that the parliament can right, regardless of how long it takes, historical wrongs, that is our job, that is our function. Madam Speaker, I am not just here speaking for my constituents, speaking for my constituency. I'm sure other MPs, if they did the research or if they were attuned to their constituencies, will understand that these situations exist therein. And the law is made for man, not man for the law. And the law must make things better. So if the Attorney General brings a law that, however it is worded, we'll always sort out the kinks. But if properly implemented, can fundamentally impact on the things I've talked about, then my standing here to contribute and support it this afternoon would have been of some use. Madam Speaker, I thank you.
Leader of the House.
Thank you very kindly, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I beg to move that pursuant to Standing Order 53, that this debate be adjourned to later in the proceedings to allow the House, by agreement between both sides, to revert to papers and statements by ministers. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Honourable members, the question is that this debate be adjourned to later in the proceedings. All in favour say aye. Aye. Any against? The ayes have it.
Papers.
The Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I have the honor to lay the Tax Administration Diagnostic Assessment Tool Performance Assessment Report on Trinidad and Tobago.
By ministers.
Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I had the privilege just a few seconds ago to lay in this Honorable House the December 2017 Tax Administration Diagnostic Assessment Tool, or TADAT, Performance Assessment Report on Trinidad and Tobago. The report was prepared by an International Monetary Fund Technical Assistance Mission which visited Trinidad and Tobago during the period September 20th to October 3rd, 2017. The report has identified the main strengths and weaknesses of our tax administration system through the application of a newly introduced assessment tool, which allows us to gauge the performance of our tax administration with clear guidelines and priorities for reform. It has long been recognized that our tax collection system is underperforming. Although we have made substantial and significant progress in reforming the taxation system for improving domestic revenues. At the beginning of the 1990s, we introduced the value-added tax, which had a great revenue potential by ensuring an adequate and sustainable base with minimal exemptions. In the early 2000s, we reformed the income tax regime on both individuals and corporations by lowering rates and removing exemptions. Madam Speaker, despite the implementation of those best practice tax instruments over the last 2 decades, our revenue administration continues to suffer from serious issues with its organizational structure and governance and non-compliance. It was these considerations which led the PNM administration over 10 years ago to initiate the process to put in place the Trinidad and Tobago Revenue Authority. This new authority was intended to integrate the Customs and Excise and the Inland Revenue divisions into a single organization which would have greater flexibility and autonomy, allowing for improved management and greater efficiency and effectiveness in the collection of public revenue. It would have embraced best practice standards in domestic tax administration. Madam Speaker, it is unfortunate that the former UNC administration brought this revenue authority model to an end, and with it, the tax reform and modernization agenda, which would have enhanced tax compliance and improvement of service delivery to taxpayers, among other things. However, we have resumed work on this project and will in the near future advise this House of the progress made, as well as introduce the necessary legislation to reform our system of revenue collection. The TADAT report provides a roadmap which would guide the Inland Revenue Department in the first instance and subsequently the proposed Revenue Authority in strengthening domestic revenue mobilization. It has delivered an objective and standardized assessment of the most critical outcomes of our system of tax administration. The report has focused on 9 key performance outcome areas, or POAs: integrity of the registered taxpayer base, effective risk management, supporting voluntary compliance, timely filing of tax declarations, timely payment of taxes, accurate reporting and declarations, effective tax dispute resolution, efficient revenue management, and accountability and transparency. These POAs are informed by 28 high-level indicators. A 4-point scale has been used to score each dimension and indicator, with a score of A denoting that the tax administration demonstrates strong performance and follows internationally accepted good practices. B, representing that the tax administration shows sound performance fairly close to internationally accepted good practices. C, meaning that the tax administration just meets the minimum performance standards in that area. And D, denoting inadequate performance where the minimum standards set in C are not met or insufficient information to determine level of performance. Madam Speaker, the TADAT assessment in the December 2017 report is instructive. Through a diagnostic approach, it assesses outcomes in relation to the administration of our major direct and indirect taxes, which are critical to central government domestic revenue: corporate income tax, personal income tax, and value-added tax. It underlines the relative strengths and weaknesses of our tax administration. Madam Speaker, allow me now to share with this Honorable House the actual assessment of the performance outcome areas and the associated 28 high-level indicators. In respect of POA 1, integrity of the registered taxpayer base, the scores are accurate and reliable taxpayer information, D, the lowest score. Knowledge of the potential taxpayer base, C. In respect of POA 2, effective risk management, the sub-indicator scores are identification, assessment, ranking, and quantification of compliance risks, C. Mitigation of risk through a compliance improvement plan, D, the lowest score. Monitoring and evaluation of compliance risk mitigation activities, D. Identification, assessment, and mitigation of institutional risk, D, the lowest score. In respect of POA 3, supporting voluntary compliance, the scores are scope, currency, and accessibility of information, D. Scope of initiatives to reduce taxpayer compliance costs, the lowest score, D. Obtaining taxpayer feedback on products and services, C. In respect of POA 4, timely filing of tax declarations, the scores are on-time filing rate, D, the lowest score. Use of electronic filing facilities, D, the lowest score. In respect of POA 5, timely payment of taxes, the scores are use of electronic payment methods, C. Use of efficient collection systems, A. Timeliness of payments, D. Stock and flow of tax arrears, D. In respect of POA 6, accurate reporting and declarations, the scores are scope of verification actions taken to detect and deter inaccurate reporting, D+. That's still the lowest score. Extent of proactive initiatives to encourage accurate reporting, D. Monitoring the extent of inaccurate reporting, D. In respect of POA 7, effective tax dispute resolution, the sub-indicator scores are existence of an independent, workable, and graduated dispute resolution process, C. Time taken to resolve disputes, D. Degree to which dispute outcomes are acted upon, B. In respect of POA 8, efficient revenue management, contribution to government tax revenue forecasting process, C. Adequacy of the tax revenue accounting system, D, the lowest score. Adequacy of tax refund processing, D, the lowest score. In respect of POA 9, accountability and transparency, internal assurance mechanisms, D. External oversight of the tax administration, C. Public perception of integrity, D. Publication of activities, results, and plans, C. Madam Speaker, this finding of inherent weaknesses across the board in our tax administration has not come as a surprise. And we must make every effort to correct the deficiencies that have been identified in a timely manner. Accordingly, the proposed Revenue Authority will embrace best practice standards in domestic tax administration. It will improve efficiency and domestic revenue mobilization and provide fast and efficient quality service to taxpayers through simple, transparent, and up-to-date procedures. It will enhance staff competency and productivity. The 2017 TADAT Performance Assessment Report represents a useful baseline of tax administration on which the Revenue Authority would build. I thank you.
Member for Caroni Central.
24-4, Madam Speaker. Question
yes,
to the
proceed.
Question to the Honourable Minister. Did the report assess the tax leakage in the country on the basis of their survey and how long it would take to plug that gap?
Minister of Finance.
Madam Speaker, one of the indicators speaks to collection of revenue. For example, the scope of verification actions taken to detect and deter inaccurate reporting, and extent of proactive initiatives to encourage accurate reporting, and monitoring the extent of inaccurate reporting, for which the scores were all D, the lowest score. In terms of the time to deal with this, this is why we need to put in place a Revenue Authority. No. It's an organizational tool which looks at the organization and the weaknesses in the organization. So it looked at the BIR as an organization and identified weaknesses. It did not go to the actual quantum, the estimates of revenue lost.
Bills, second reading.
Members, there's only one question is permitted. Clerk.
Bills, second reading.
Honourable members, the debate on the second reading of the bill entitled An Act to Amend the Registration of Titles to Land Act 2000 will now resume and the debate will continue. Member for St. Augustine.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. The member for Moruga Tableland, I felt made a very noble effort to put things in perspective and to really appreciate that the law, we all know, was intended to serve the interests of our citizens. But I think he hit the nail on the head and hit the Attorney General on his head at the same time. What we have here is the creation of a false hope. Once again, unfortunately,
that this whole new regime, a quantum leap in the way we do business of registering lands, can be effected now. It is without doubt that we need a new system. And it has languished, of course. The laws have been on our books since the year 2000. And indeed, we had made efforts in 2011 and 12 thereafter to bring and to move forward to provide the necessary mechanisms, the legal mechanisms at least, to give effect to this new regime. But, Madam Speaker, permit me this. I went through the Hansard of the Attorney General, who I have great respect for. And it is obvious that the Attorney General, in piloting this bill, did not even attempt to explain what this whole new regime is all about. There was a lot of historical content going back to hundreds, maybe 1,000 years of British feudalism, took us to Australia and the Torrens system, but did not spare us a moment to explain what this new system is about, how we are to access it, what are the steps necessary to at the end receive a title that is unimpeachable. So, Madam Speaker, having said that, I ask the question, who really in this Parliament, apart maybe for the member for Siperi and a few select others, truly understand this suite of legislation? I have had cause, Madam Speaker, to speak to many lawyers in the last several weeks, those who practice in the area of conveyancing, in land law, in litigation before the courts. And it came as a bit of a surprise to me, as it was then when I was Minister of Legal Affairs, that very few persons in the field and in the practice in this area understood what this new regime was all about. And therefore, if that is so, and we've heard a lot from the Attorney General in condemnation, not directly, but certainly with the intent to suggest that under the partnership government we had allowed the laws to have lapsed, the bill to have lapsed, that there was something really wrong and amiss there, but he, as a champion of the proverbial future, is taking it forward, and we are here now to deliver. Madam Speaker, let me put on the record. There was good reason in 2011 and onwards for the bills to have lapsed. One of which was, my friends may have forgotten, that during that period, the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago may possibly have never seen an era of activity where laws were brought to the Parliament that served the interests of the people for their protection, first of all, their physical protection. We were dealing with anti-gang legislation. We were dealing with anti-terrorism matters. We were dealing with insurance matters. It's a matter of record. And therefore, the priority that we have in that law, unfortunately, fell under the priority to protect our citizens and our economic well-being in this nation. So it lapsed. Yes, I admit we allowed it to lapse not because we wanted it to lapse, but because the Parliament did not have the time to deal with those laws. Maybe we have forgotten the enormous wastage of parliamentary time when attacks were made on the members of the then government. Motions of no confidence after motions of no confidence after motions of no confidence. Part of the propaganda of the government, of the opposition of the day, to undermine the legitimacy of the then seated government. Yes, oh Lord, it is a truth. And that, in a large part, and the citizens will recall and we will remind them of the things that delayed the Parliament from doing all that we wish to have done. Well, Madam Speaker, on the point, whether it lapsed then, and if it is so important to this government, how come the Attorney General allowed it to have lapsed last year under their governance? But I am not here to cast blame. I am not here to cast blame. Let me tell you one of the things that the partnership government under the leadership of the Prime Minister, Kamla Persad-Bissessar, always maintained, is that if we bring law, it must be met with the reality on the ground. We were not of the belief that we will just dazzle with brilliance and other things by bringing law that could have no real-world impact and consequence. As a Minister of Legal Affairs, I can say that when I went into that ministry, which, with all due respect, is one of the finest and most important ministries in the country, having been created literally from the ground up by the member for Siparia, and serves almost on a daily basis about 2,000 of our citizens, that there were things there that I felt wretched over, that this building, and the one we speak to is on South Quay, the place was in a state of dereliction. And I do not even remember who was the minister who preceded me. And I shan't even try to remember. But one of the first things we needed to have done in that ministry was to upgrade basic things, like the environment within which the employees had to work. The smell and the odor emanated was of the old, what shall I say, our old hospital. It was non-conducive to productivity, for smiles and happy, happy greetings to the 2,000 who would have come to that ministry. And we took a decision, let us upgrade the facilities for those who work there. And we did. And I do not say that as if it's some great thing. It's a matter that ought to have been done, but we did it. And I recall the morning, it was around 6 o'clock, I got a call from Mr. Jack Warner, who was a minister in our government at the time, to say there was a lineup outside the ministry. It was raining that morning, and the people were out in the weather. And I shan't go into all that, but we created an environment where no matter what time, member for Siparia, that ministry which you created became a home and a safe and happy place for people to have visited. We were able to have removed the delay for birth certificates in San Fernando from more than a year to a matter of minutes. For the production of any document, once again, not a matter of months or weeks, but a matter, once again, of minutes. To remove corruption, and I want to get to that, and I will leave that for another segment of what we had to deal with. So the fundamentals had to be put in place. And I am so happy if the Attorney General could tell us now that the problems that we had when we went into the vault, where the deed documents, the root documents, many of them were kept in such terrible condition that if you were to just touch them, they will fall into dust and decay. Disintegrate to the touch. Brittle, rotten, or whatever. And we then, when I say we, and it's not me, I want to put some names on the record. The former, now deceased, God rest his soul, Permanent Secretary, Mr. Bernard Sylvester, the RG of the day, Susan Francois, the present RG, Karen Bridgewater, Mr. Sandy, Nicole Moonan, and a host of others. What amazing public servants they were. In the horrible conditions that they existed in, they were able to have done so much, but we needed to preserve the documents. And let me tell you, member for Moruga Tableland, there are persons in this country, yes, who have deeds in hand. But if you have to do a search beyond what they have, the documents, the root for their titles cannot now be located, one, or two, if they are located, they cannot be touched, and therefore, three, cannot be accessed. And one of the big projects that we had to undertake in that ministry was to preserve and digitize, moving backwards. We couldn't go to the oldest first, but from the newest backwards. And I wait with bated breath, because the entire new system that is required, if we are to make this thing not just law, but to make it real, will require digitization of all those records. And when I went in as minister, it was a small percentage of those records that had been done. And as a member for Siparia has rightly pointed out, there may be 1 million or more documents to be digitized. It is an enormous task. So I wait now to hear what level, because the work had started, it has progressed, and I hope it had continued after we demitted in 2015, to a point that we are positioned to say 80, 90, maybe 100% of the documents have been digitized. So that a new system, once we plug it in, up and running and we go. But I'm not confident of that. The reason I'm not confident of that is the reports I get almost on a daily basis of what has happened since we demitted office. It seems as all the standards had fallen in the ministry. I don't know who caused it, what has happened, but the reports are there. We saw it on the news not long ago, where our citizens in San Fernando in particular, they were, out in the weather, waiting, they said, for some time, not just hours, but told to return the next day and the next day and the next day for documents that they had grown accustomed to in those glorious years of the People's Partnership on Peace and Prosperity of 10 to 15, when they would get documents in minutes. And they are given numbers, very short, 10, 15, 20 persons who could be attended at in San Fernando, and equally in Port of Spain. When we were doing 2,000 in a day, I don't understand how we could have arrived. And I hope the numbers are wrong that have been given to me, to 100 and 200. What has gone wrong? I don't know. That PNM has now become, and I want you all to note this, the people are now saying the People's Partnership, the PP government represented peace and prosperity, and the PNM now represents pandemonium, noise, and mayhem. The cop, you need some good police on that side, Chief. Right? So if you want to follow the money, we'll talk about that in another course. Yeah, but I am here standing, right? And in the age...
Remember, don't be distracted. Please direct your contribution this way. Don't be distracted.
I won't be, but it's just coincidental as we approach Easter, the time of the resurrection of our Christ, that even those they believe are dead can rise. What you say? So, for he who has no faith, I understand why they would think that way. But we are on this point. That when we went in the government, the people of San Fernando, yes, there was a ministry office, and I put it that glibly, of legal affairs in San Fernando. But under the direction of our Prime Minister of the day, she said, look, you cannot have the people of San Fernando, all of South, including the members and the constituents of Moruga Tableland, have to come to Port of Spain on basic things to make that a fully functioning ministry so that whatever you could achieve in Port of Spain, you could achieve in San Fernando. And we did it. Not coming down, wait, there's plenty, you know. We did it. Not just did we do that there. The office in Arima, and as a matter, I couldn't believe this actually happened, but if you look into the newspapers, you would see many letters of commendation because we also in Arima put a full-fledged ministry under the direction, not just the instruction, in the direction of our then Prime Minister to put a full-fledged ministry in Arima to serve the people of Dabadi Omera, Toko Sangre Grande, and the people, Lopino Bonnet, you name it, all of that. Yeah. I think they shut it down. I will leave Tobago for a moment because that is a very special and it's a love thing with Tobago. It's a Tobago love thing, and I will talk to you about that. The hypocrisy of the PNM will be exposed by not what they say, but what they have done. You know what? Let me deal with it now.
Yeah. Things collapse in Tobago.
We believe in building bonds and bridges. A sea bridge, an air bridge, but certainly a connection.
I've given you a lot of breath, because I understood you were saying that there needed to be some sort of groundwork. Okay? So I think you have laid the groundwork. You've answered that. Could you kindly move on, please?
Therefore, we are ready to launch. Now, right. Madam Speaker, we have heard that this whole new system is to create a dynamic method to grant land titles in Tobago for the first time. I was jarred to have heard it. I couldn't believe that in this modern day and age that things that are recorded both visually and audibly and in the press could be denied. You know one of the first things we as the People's Partnership Government did in Tobago? We opened one of our offices right across the court from the Magistrates Court and High Court of Tobago so that citizens could more easily access all of the documents that they couldn't in Tobago, so that they didn't have to take any boat to come.
Yeah.
Thank God they didn't have to fly over here to get it. Whatever, that's what I'm saying. So now they could stay right in Tobago and get all the documents. I hope you haven't shut that down, Mr. Attorney General.
I feel if they get it.
So, but again, as I said, I think the point you were making was, that was the initial point, to answer something that was said about lapsing. And you showed that you had done certain things. Could you kindly go on to your next point, please?
The lapse now, I'm dealing frontally with this thing. That this new system that I want to put in place will provide some level of succor to the people of Tobago that they will get their land titles. Listen. It is in written writing, in photographs, is electronic, everything. On the 14th of January 2013, I was there myself. That is the day I got buffed for asking for a coffee in the hotel. And I left and went to meet my Prime Minister at the MIC facilities, remember? Yes. Minister of Tertiary Education of the day. Fantastic morning it was, where we distributed minimum of 19 titles for the first time to the people of Trinidad. The man was, I forgot his name, but he 90-something years old, and he cried. He wanted, and I agree with everybody who spoke on how important title is, and this man never believed that he could live to see the day. And under a non-PNM government to get land title in his hand, and he got it. And that didn't just happen, you know. Crying. That took work. Because under, again, and forgive me, Prime Minister, for exposing the amount of sometimes pressure you put on your ministers, one of the first directives to the Ministry of Legal Affairs was to deal with that issue of land for the people of Tobago. So we went and we searched and we found there were at least 3 reports under inches of dust. Of course, we dusted it off, looked at the reports. Good work. Good work. Not a single moment of action was taken on it. I went to meet, out of due respect, the Chief Secretary of Tobago, Mr. London. He greeted us graciously. And we said, this is why we're here. We want your cooperation. And we put together a committee led then by the Minister of Tobago West and many of the leading lights of citizens of Tobago, senior members of the staff of legal affairs and lands and surveys and so. And they created a report. And out of that report, remember we came in May 2010, eh? It wasn't easy, but we put the resources into the ministerial offices in Tobago, put the manpower and the will, and they worked assiduously, and we were able to have achieved that mile mark. So to hear that for the first time, this new system is going to help the people of Tobago, nothing could be further from the truth. It's been done. And we left systems in place for it to continue.
Well said.
What did you do? Did you murder it? Did you kill it? Did you, what?
Same thing with this secret.
And, Madam Speaker, with all honesty, I stand before you. This is the unmitigated truth. But we are regaled repeatedly in this Parliament that the partnership did nothing. We were unhelpful and unkind. The truth stands on its own feet. We do not need anything else. Madam Speaker, having said all of that, I think it will then be incumbent upon our extremely able Attorney General to tell us, because he always believes in evidence-based decision-making, on statistical evidence, as to what percentage of the lands of Trinidad and Tobago have been surveyed thus far. I ask also, which I already did and I shall repeat, what number or what percentage of deeds and or any other land documents have been digitized. I ask also for the Attorney General to tell us what new manpower has been put in place, what new equipment would have been purchased, what new systems have been designed, what new physical locations have been provided for this enormously quantum leap into the future for land title registration. Because as I remember, that structure that housed the Ministry of Legal Affairs and the new building, the one that was designed specifically for the Ministry of Legal Affairs, the vault in that building did not have the specifications necessary to house documents. The new building. And they had to change the entire fire mitigation system. You can't have documents with one of the old-time sprinklers. If you have a fire, it sprayed on and wet down everything. So they had to change it to gas. I do not know where that has arrived at. So we still use the old, Melody, I know you know about the old vault. One of the things about that vault, when we became empowered and responsible.
Talking about a bill to amend the land registration of title. Okay, so while I understood before, I want to remind you of what is before us. Please.
I'm most grateful to you, and that's the point. And that is why I'm hastening to your word that it is about that foundational set of documents upon which this thing must be built. So the vault, I was making the point, the old vault, it was as porous as you could get. Persons had access to it. And I couldn't believe, here it was, because we were hearing for years of persons who lost their property because of fraudulent deeds and so, and no steps had been taken to ensure that anyone who had access there had the highest level of clearance and security. So we put things in place. We put video cameras on it, electronic monitoring, so that the moment anybody goes in there, then we pre-qualified only a few to have access there. And the moment they entered, it was registered. RFID, I think they call it. And a host of other electronic surveillance equipment and to secure documents. And out of that, Madam Speaker, notwithstanding that, however, there were persons that we found who went in, I don't know if in collusion with others, who had no authority, and we saw them ripping out, you know about this, Mr. Hines. What? Yeah. No, it happens, ripping out old deeds and sticking it into their pants and going out. And we were able to have called in the police to have arrested and prosecuted persons who were involved in stealing deeds and putting in false documents in that vault. So there's a lot of work that had to be done. And if it is that my friend, the Attorney General, is now saying that he's ready to proceed, congratulations to the PP government for the work that you did before in preparation. And congratulations to you for having furthered it, but I take no confidence that you are yet ready. Because I know I have more, much more. Yeah. Madam Speaker, I have more to say. I'm looking at the time, and I would just want, before we take the break for tea, to deal with one aspect that caused me some real pain when it was said in a tone of condemnation and of blame on the former Minister of Legal Affairs. This issue of the IBM license. Mr. Attorney General, tell us, when you wind up or whenever, the license that I took a decision not to renew on the advice of those who knew better in the system. You know what it was? Yeah? No, I'll tell you what happened, Madam Speaker. Would you believe Trinidad and Tobago, an independent nation, a sovereign state, a license we inherited says this, that the owner of the license to use electronics for the searches own the information. What? They own the information.
They don't only sell birth rights, they sell land rights.
Sorry.
Honourable members, it's now 4:30. We shall now take the suspension. This House is now suspended and we shall resume at 5 p.m.